Welcome to Florida Gators Live 9. It is December 8th, and a lot of breaking news today. Playoffs just got announced, or the games for the playoffs just got announced. Florida's bowl game got announced, and tomorrow the transfer portal officially opens. Even though we've already had players say they're going to enter their name in the portal, tomorrow they actually open. So we got a pretty fun show, even though the season is almost over. Next week we'll have our predictions for the game, but the first thing we're going to do, let's just get a quick reaction to who we're facing in Tulane. So the first thing I'm going to say about Tulane, I mean, they're coming off back-to-back losses. I'm kind of underwhelmed by who we got. Really got, screwed by Alabama not making the playoffs, because I'm pretty sure I saw if Bama was in the playoff, Florida would be playing Duke in the Gator Bowl. Mm-hmm. So underwhelming, because I really wanted to play in Jacksonville, the Gator Bowl. It goes hand in hand with Florida, so it would have been nice to play in Jacksonville again and get redemption for that stadium.
Yeah, it's definitely a bummer. Although maybe it's good for the health of our players that we don't have to go back to the Jag Stadium. No, but yeah, I mean, definitely underwhelming when, you thought we were maybe in the mix for the Gator Bowl or like the ReliaQuest Bowl even, or even the Liberty Bowl would have been a better, in terms of prestige, at least would have been a better bowl game. I mean, it's a complicated, so I will, if you're not aware, it's not quite as simple as, if you're listening, it's not quite as simple as the standings of the SEC. There's more that goes into it. There's, bowls can decide who they think is going to be the more marketable team, the team that's going to travel better. Schools have at least some degree of negotiation within there. So just didn't work out for the Gators, but at least they're staying in the state of Florida. And at least kind of like you said, I think this is a pretty winnable bowl matchup for the Gators. I mean, not even getting into what the state of Tulane's roster is going to be with opt-outs and portal guys and stuff. Yeah, like you said, I mean, I was shocked the way they got manhandled by Army in that game, but maybe I shouldn't have been. Maybe I shouldn't have been, considering they had just lost a heartbreaking game that took them out of the playoff potentially. I mean, in hindsight, probably, as you and I were talking about off air, probably did take them out of the playoff. They didn't know for sure at the time. But yeah, so a pretty deflated Tulane team that is going to be without probably quite a few guys. So I think it bodes well for the Gators in terms of getting to 8-5, and it's cool that it's going to be in Tampa. But yeah, certainly not as good a matchup as we hope maybe we could get.
Yeah, I mean, I messaged you this, and it's kind of like a crazy scenario to think about. Tulane was ranked 17th before they lost to Memphis. After Clemson lost to South Carolina, Clemson fell to 17th. So if I'm doing that correctly, Tulane would have been 16th had they not lost. And I mean, a win over a good Army team. Army was in the top 25, if I'm not mistaken, when they played in the conference championship game. So
yes,
Army likely would have been in the top 25 when they played. I mean, you could have seen Tulane get the last auto bid over Clemson. That's how this Tulane team's pretty good. Now there is a setback for Tulane. Their starting QB Darian Mensah, he just entered the transfer portal. I don't know if he's going to play in the game or not. I'm going to assume no.
I would also assume no. Yeah,
they're going to be going to a former highly rated recruit, Oregon transfer Ty Thompson. I think he'll be the one playing the game. Mensah was really good for them this year. He's probably going to go to a Power 4 school. I could see him going somewhere like a Texas A&M, even. But so losing him definitely affects them in this game. Florida opened, I believe, at -9. And with this Mensah news, I assume the line is just going to fall or rise for Florida, however you want to put it. I think the Gators are going to be heavy favorites. The game's going to be in Tampa, so you're going to have a high amount of Gator fans at the game as well, especially DJ Lagway's playing. I think Gator fans will travel to this one. We said before that if you put Florida in a matchup with a Colorado, or Florida in a matchup with a Miami, even though obviously that was really unlikely to happen, that it may have been the most viewed non-playoff game. And there were two things for that, because, two big brands, but also because you're looking at two of the best players, or some of the best players in the nation. DJ Lagway in Florida versus Colorado, if they had Shadur Sanders. Because I'm pretty sure they announced they're playing the bowl game already.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah, Deion said that the Shadur and Travis are both playing, yeah.
So those two alone plus DJ Lagway alone, the views on that game would have been nuts. But I still think it's going to be pretty good because you're looking at the Gators. DJ Lagway is a big draw. It's like, I know I look at it, I'm kind of looking at it like from a wrestling term, where it's like, oh, you have like The Rock, he's going to draw numbers. That's kind of how DJ Lagway is. It's going to draw the first of the games, it's going to draw viewers, and it's going to be the game right before the playoff starts between Notre Dame and Indiana. So there's going to be people who are just getting off work. The end of the game is probably we're going to have a high viewer count, unless the Gators are just blowing them out.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. That is, I'd say the worst part about it is that I think a Friday bowl is fine. It being 3:30 Eastern on a Friday is pretty tough. Hopefully, I mean, maybe some people will be taking a long weekend or whatever leading into the holiday, but that's kind of tough if you work in an office or something and are trying to watch the Gators bowl game. But yeah, I mean, like, honestly, because I actually didn't, I'll be honest, I didn't see the Mensa news until right before we logged on to do this. So I kind of, in terms of how I was like preparing to what I was going to say about Tulane, was kind of factoring in him playing. And even with him playing, I kind of liked the matchup. I think he's a fantastic quarterback. He's done a nice job stepping in for Michael Pratt this season. But to me, like, it's really simple for me with this Tulane team. They can't stop the run. They can't tackle. No. They struggled with Memphis, and then against an option academy team in the bowl game the other night, conference championship game the other night. Like, they had no answer for it. They got run all over. I have it
written down. Against Memphis, they gave up 236 rushing yards, and against Army, 335 rushing yards. And then I bet, I don't have the numbers, but the two other games they lost to Oklahoma and Kansas State early in the season, I'd bet both of those offenses ran all over them. We see Arnold has decent mobility, and obviously Avery Johnson at Kansas State with DJ Giddens. Oh, man, they probably ran for 250 yards on him probably. So the Gators, Montreal Johnson, I assume he's going to play his final game as a Gator. I mean, I'd love his odds to have a good game with Jaden Baugh and Jacoby Jackson. So we're not really breaking down the game right now, but just from the running game alone, Florida is going to be in a really good spot to win this game.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I mean, and like, if you look at the Army game and you're like, well, it's Army, like they do that to pretty much everyone, and that's their MO. Like, sure, but Memphis, that's not. Memphis is a team that passes the ball, and they still ran for, what'd you say, 230 something on them?
236.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's definitely an issue. They haven't played, I mean, like they've played two, I think, power conference teams that are flawed, like decent in some ways, but extremely flawed, like not well-rounded teams in Kansas State and Oklahoma. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a good matchup for the Gators, especially because, like, I mean, we'll see, I mean, this could be rendered obsolete tomorrow when the portal opens if someone shocking goes in, but none of the guys so far that we've seen out of the portal for Florida are guys that are major contributors on this team, certainly. Maybe they were going to be in the future, but not guys that you'd really miss significantly in a bowl game. So, I mean, Florida, assuming Montreal plays, like, and, maybe Caleb Banks is the guy that you wonder about, but, like, I think Florida looks to be pretty close to, like, what their roster looked like against Florida State in this game.
Yeah, I have to agree there. Some things I wrote down. So, not USF, but Tulane's best wins are a blowout win against USF. That's pretty impressive. USF wasn't as good as people expected. Only finished at 6-6, but they were still decent. And their best win was probably Lafayette, Louisiana. Lafayette, I don't know if they said Lafayette in their name, who just lost in the Sun Belt Championship game. So, like, they have decent wins, but they didn't really beat anybody good. And then we already talked about their losses. Army, they are a top 25 team, and so is Memphis now. Both of them are in the top 25. But then Kansas State and Oklahoma, Kansas State in like that top 30-ish range, top 35, and Oklahoma just not that good. They gave up 38 points to Oklahoma. I mean, we saw how that was before they fired the offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
So I really don't know what to expect from this Tulane defense. We took their D-line coach. I mean, they'd probably love to have Gerald Chapman back right now. But my biggest question as well, will John Summerall even be the coach for Tulane for this game?
I would say I'm going to say yes, because at this moment in time, the only job that I think he would leave for is North Carolina.
Yep.
And man, if you have not been following the day-to-day on that North Carolina search, messy is a nice way to describe it. sounds like Bill Belichick might be, if not the leading candidate, a leading candidate. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like Summerall is definitely in the mix there. I mean, frankly, tell me if you disagree here. If you're him, I think you'd be crazy to take that job. I mean, the fact that no SEC jobs opened this cycle to me only means there's going to be a ton of SEC jobs opening next cycle. Well, and you could easily plug him in at like an Auburn or something like that.
Here's the way I look at it. I think if he goes to North Carolina, he could be at North Carolina for 10 plus years. He's only competing with teams like Clemson, maybe FSU, Miami, SMU, Louisville. Those are like probably the biggest competition at like the top of the ACC on like an overall, like they're going to continue being there. You'll have teams that surprise every other year or so. But he can get North Carolina to the playoffs and ACC championships easier. But I do know he also is a Kentucky alum. Or I don't know if super alum, but he was a coach under Mark Stoops, I'm pretty sure. So
this one. Yeah, this.
Yeah.
I mean, all I was going to say about that is I think he's moved beyond. I think he's better than Kentucky now. I think he's too good to take that job.
But I think he might go there like sentimentally, you know. Like why I think Kenny Dillingham might stick with Arizona State. Come sucky, yes, Tony. This is a Louisville fan if you couldn't tell. But yeah, it could be like a Kenny Dillingham situation where he just wants to stay at Arizona State or go to Kentucky.
Yeah.
But one other thing, if I was Summerall, I would stay. But one thing that does sway my opinion, Mensa leaving. Because Mensa's a really good QB. And I mean, well, they went from Pratt to Mensa. So they're obviously developing and recruiting guys pretty well. Are they going to be able to hit on a third straight QB? Because if Ty Thompson's the guy, I don't think they're going to compete for – I mean, they could compete for the American Championship. It's not an elite conference. But they're not really going to be competing to be a playoff team or a team that, I mean, maybe could upset in the playoffs. So it's like that's really the biggest reason I'd say he might leave.
Yeah, I mean, and like also just straight up the money. I mean, he'd make a lot more.
Yeah, the money.
If he took the North Carolina job. I guess I'm just saying, like, if he's playing the long view here, I mean, he's very quickly become like the biggest rising star. Like, he's the Tom Herman of his era. Like, that's kind of where he's at this point. And kind of like I said, I mean, if Auburn opened next year, if Arkansas opened next year, if Florida opened next year, I think John Summerall would 100% get a look if Florida decided to move on from Billy Napier next year for whatever reason. Like, there's going to be a lot of good jobs opening up. Like, it's just, I just am very skeptical that North Carolina is actually committed, and we'll see, like, if he actually wants to stick around, if he actually wants to go do that and not just ride it out for one more year at a good G5 program and then go to the SEC.
Yeah, we'll break down this game more next week. We just want to give a quick reaction. And I mean, the vibe it should be giving to Florida fans right now is the Gators should be pretty confident in this game. I mean, I'd be shocked if Florida lost. Like, the only way I think Tulane has a chance is if like DJ Lagway doesn't play for some reason. And I'm not going to predict that because there's no reason to expect him not to play. So that was just a quick breakdown. I'm still excited for the matchup. You know, we get to play an extra game, a 9-win team too. So it's not like Tulane is a pushover. They're still a good team in the trenches on offense. They should be able to run the ball. I mean, they run the ball decently well. But I mean, and Ty Thompson, he is pretty mobile, isn't he?
I believe so, although we haven't seen him play a ton. Like, he only attempted, I think, 12 passes throughout the course of this season.
Tony, wait, you want Billy to – I mean, I'd say, I want Billy to succeed. I like Billy Napier, and it saves us money. I mean, we're not going to have to do another rebuild. I mean, I wouldn't see why you wouldn't want Billy to stay if you're a Gator fan.
I'd say that I remain extremely skeptical about like the long-term prospects of Billy Napier at Florida. What I would say I stand on Billy Napier is I have come to be okay with not paying Billy Napier $26 million to go away this season. Like, I saw enough that I'm okay letting this, you know, seeing one more year to see what happens with Lagway and cut that buyout money down by $7 million or whatever it would be.
I mean, one big way that Napier's going to save his job is the transfer portal. Let's get into this, actually. So the transfer portal opens up tonight, 12 a.m. I assume it opens at 12 a.m. So that's when you could see players officially enter the portal. That's when you can start bringing players on visits. I think you can start bringing them on visits tomorrow. So what do the Gators need the most when you look at the transfer portal? I have every position written down. I have some names as well that you can look at. Let's start with the most important position, the quarterback. Now, obviously, DJ Lagway is going to be the starter for the next 2 years if everything goes to plan. But we still need a backup at QB. So it's going to be a very interesting situation in the portal for the Gators to actually get a backup. Because if you bring someone in, they know they're not starting. Because you can't pay another elite QB to come and start for a year for no reason. And you can't just get someone who you can't just go get like a sophomore or junior that thinks they can play after Lagway because that's going to be too long for them. So there's like 2 spots I see here for the Gators. I see them going after a grad QB. Like a name I saw was Zach Pyron at Georgia Tech. He's already the Georgia Tech backup QB. He'll be a grad transfer. The way you could go there, you could go pay a grad transfer who doesn't really have a chance at the NFL. Go pay a grad transfer a decent amount of money to be your backup QB for next season, just in case things don't go to plan. Another way I could see it, which I don't think will go, get like some freshman who is like the 3rd string somewhere. Maybe they took 2 QBs in a class. I can't think of anyone off the top of my head, but maybe you'll get like a 3rd string freshman somewhere who has like who's like a 5 or 4-star recruit, pay them a good amount of money, and then maybe have them compete after Lagway leaves. But then you're going to be paying 2 QBs. Plus Tramel Jones, a good amount of money on your roster, which I don't think will go that route. So the route I think we go is just go and pay a grad transfer QB who, like a Pyron, he's a mobile QB. They put him in games actually early in the season in the red zone. So if Lagway does get hurt, you do have someone who can command the offense. While also, if he's not the best arm, you can rely on his legs in a pretty heavy run system.
Yeah, I agree with everything you just said. I think certainly you have to upgrade the backup situation. You can't let it be Aiden Warner again. Especially, with Lagway being a guy who, while not like a true runner, like a guy that is mobile, is going to take some hits. If he goes down for short period of time, long period of time, you have to have a better option. I guess my only question here is what's going on with Clay Millen? Because looking at what the kind of quarterback Florida would target in the portal, frankly, it's Clay Millen. That's the kind of quarterback you would look at for that role. And a guy who had some decent playing experience at Colorado State. I'm not a guy that I think you would ever really want ideally starting at Florida, but could if you needed him to. So, it seems like he redshirted this year. Is he gone? Is he going to portal and go try to start somewhere? What's the plan?
That's what I think is going to happen. I think he's going to transfer. We have the next segment where we're going to talk about players leaving.
Yeah.
And I think Clay Millen's going to transfer. From what I heard, he got straight up beat out by Aiden Warner. So I
feel like I still need to see that with my own 2 eyes before I believe that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Maybe you do, but still, I think that just leads us on to believe that he's gone.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to be returning next year, which Clay Millen, I don't know if we go after another Clay Millen type player, though. I don't know. Backup QBs are really hard to predict you get in the portal. So I was Zach Pyron was a name that I saw someone mention. So I thought, grad transfer makes sense. Just pay him some money to finish off their career, and then they can go do what they want from there on out. Look at the running back position. Our running back room is full. I don't even know if Daniels or Webb. I don't think Webb isn't transferring. He already announced he's coming back. So you don't really need any portal running backs. You already bring in 3 freshman running backs. Although I do think Gasper is on the walk-on and is not on scholarship. But still, that's 3 running backs who are – Gasper was still top 600 recruit, which is respectable enough to be a guy that you could see end up being a decent football player. So I don't really want to talk about the running back room there. Wide receiver. This is probably the most interesting spot for Florida. I'll let you start off because I did the QB, so I'll let you start off here. If any names you want to mention.
Yeah, so looking at receiver, I think first of all, we've talked about this a couple weeks ago, and I'd say receiver is not quite as big of a need as we thought a couple weeks ago, because I think you and I were both operating under the assumption that Trey Wilson was gone.
Yes.
Trey Wilson's not gone. Trey Wilson's coming back, which He's kind of struggled to stay healthy. I think Florida is not using him as effectively as they could be. But I still think he's a good player with a high ceiling that you'd rather have on your team than not. Granted, still a major position of need in the portal because you're losing DK, you're losing Badger, and not really a lot of proven guys behind them. Even Mizell, I think, has looked a little bit rough around the edges at times, though there's potential there. So certainly I think an area where you're probably going to be among the most aggressive in the portal in terms of targeting guys with a lot of playing experience. One name I know you and I have both heard a lot of is CJ Daniels, transfer from LSU, guy that I'm kind of familiar with because I covered him for most of this year. One of the bigger names in the portal last year coming in from Liberty was their leading receiver on that team that went to the New Year's Six 1,000-yard season with Liberty. Kind of lost in the shuffle a little bit at LSU. Yeah, and Dane Key too, by the way, from Kentucky. Great option. Really good player. Hopefully they're in for him because I think that would be a great pickup. But Daniels is really the only one I've receiver-wise heard a lot of smoke for. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Oh, you can finish off real quick.
I was just a little background on Daniels. Yeah, like when he got a little lost in the shuffle this year at LSU, I think he's a good player. Like he made some nice flashes. It's just the offense as a whole took a step back this year with Garrett Nussmeier, sharing the targets with Kyron Lacey, who's really good, and Mason Taylor, who's probably the best tight end LSU's ever had. Their all-time leading receiver for a tight end. So like I wouldn't look too heavily into the production drop-off from him this year. I think if he were to come to Florida, he would be a much more featured player in the offense.
He also was dealing with injuries this year, wasn't he?
Yeah, he definitely missed a couple games, and I'm not sure. And even though I think he ended up playing in most of them, he certainly, I don't think, was at 100% throughout the year.
No. So some other names that it's hard to have like rumors of who's going to be coming, especially when the portal hasn't even opened yet. But some other names to look at: Eric Rivers from FIU, still a big time production at FIU. Yeah. I just don't know if we're going to be looking at someone of his stature, 5'11". So I think we're looking for some bigger body receivers like Nick Anderson at Oklahoma. I have heard a little bit about him that we might actually take a decent shot at him. Big body receiver. He had 10 touchdowns, not this season, but the year before. He was injured all of this past season. So we wouldn't really look at his stats from this year. I think the Gators need to look at two receivers. And Nick Anderson, a guy that, big body, 6'3", 6'4", good red zone threat. And so maybe this is just wishful thinking. Maybe I think we need to go out and get like a big time wide receiver one. Because you look at Trey Wilson, he's a slot receiver. Aiden Mizell is also in the slot. So you're losing Badger and DK. So you're needing to replace those two and hopefully get like better guys. I mean, Badger and DK are good. But when you have the best QB, maybe the best QB in the country, you want to go get the best receivers in the country. They're going to be attracted to you. You just got to pay them. So like if there's a way you can go get like a Jeremiah Smith or a Cam Coleman or a Jordan Tyson from Arizona State, I would like for us to go get one of those guys. Some other names, Micah Hudson, 5-star from Texas Tech. He entered the transfer portal. I know he got injured before the season, played a little bit, had like 100 yards on the season. Texas Tech also had two really good receivers. I know one of them went for over 1,000 yards this year. So it's not like he was buried in the depth chart at Texas Tech. Definitely a name. I don't know if I'd want him to be the number one guy we go after, but he would definitely be a guy of interest to me. Again, the portal hasn't even opened yet, so there's going to be a lot more names at receiver. I would just love for us to go get a bona fide wide receiver one to go with DJ Lagway.
Yeah, I think you need that. I think you probably need, a maybe more like speedier guy. Like I think you kind of need some variety in the receiving room just because, especially with Trey, just not necessarily being able to trust the health there.
Yep.
You need some dynamic players in there. But I agree. I think it's been a while since Florida's had like a legit true wide receiver one. I mean, it's been maybe Van Jefferson.
Yeah, Trayvon Grimes was good.
Like maybe Trayvon Grimes, but
like Kadarius Toney was a playmaker, like that slot receiver.
Yeah.
And Kyle Pitts was a tight end, so it's like that's different. Yeah. And so Grimes was the wide receiver one, then Van Jefferson.
Shorter at one
maybe
point,
maybe freshman year Antonio Callaway.
We're talking about almost a decade ago at this point from that.
Yeah. So then looking at tight end, so this is really interesting. We're gonna get on the who's leaving, so we're already losing Arliss Bortingham. One name I'm hearing a lot to look out for: Caleb Odin, about top 50 recruit, just entered the transfer portal from Alabama. He's a guy that can stretch, play tight end and receiver. We do see Florida play 2 tight end sets a lot and move tight ends out into the near the receiver position and everything. He's a big body for DJ Lagway. So when you trust DJ Lagway with his ball placement to put it to where only the receiver can get it, and you have a guy who's 6'6", 230 pounds, like Caleb Odom is, I would love for us to go get him. Another name, Lucas, really talented kid from Arkansas, former top 100 recruit as well. There's actually a couple tight ends in the portal. There's a guy from Ball State as well who entered high production, like 800 yards this season. Losing Arliss Bortingham, maybe some others as well. I think we have some good run blockers. We get Caleb Rios, Air Force transfer, who had the red shirt this season, and Hayden Hansen to return as well. So we got some good blocking tight ends. But I would love for us to go get a really good pass-catching tight end.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Caleb Odom. I actually was considering, kind of forgot to bring him up during the receiver segment. I think it's a good segue. Like, do you see Florida, if they were to targeting him as a tight end? Because he was recruited as a tight end. It seems like he's listed as a receiver by Alabama. He is, yeah. So I'm curious where he would fit more into this team. Because he's tall, doesn't necessarily built like a tight end, like weight wise, but with the frame at least.
Well, I think the way Florida stretches out their tight ends, I could see him end up playing the tight end role. Like you look at another guy on the team right now, Amir Jackson, who is less of a tight end, more of a receiving threat. That's how we like to do it. We like to have 2 tight ends, one that's more of a receiving threat, more versatile, and then the blocking threat like Hayden Hansen is. So I think he would play tight end. But I don't know if we go after him as a receiver. I don't know what his speed is like and his route running. So I think if you have him at tight end to where, you can hide him a bit. If you get one-on-one coverages, he can probably outrun linebackers and be bigger than safeties. So I assume we look at him that tight end. But that's maybe we don't go after him, or maybe he doesn't come here because he wants to be a receiver full time.
Yeah. Certainly just saw that very similar situation play out on National Signing Day, as we'll get into.
Yeah, Tajon Gelsey. We'll get into that a bit. But there's a receiver from Iowa State. They had 2 1,000-yard receivers at Iowa State. And apparently FSU was looking at one of their backups to be on their roster. And Florida's found some gems, like a Caleb Banks was a gem. There's definitely someone I'm missing. Oh, George Gums. Like some guys that no one else would really look at, but then end up being really good players for Florida. So maybe FSU is doing that, but it's also like, do you trust FSU to do that at this point? But let's get to the offensive line. So I think Florida could end up returning 4 or 5 stars on the offensive line. Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon, really the only one who has to leave. So I think we just need 1 offensive tackle. So maybe the best offensive tackle in the transfer portal, like since it's opened, Corey Robinson from Georgia Tech. This would be like the best pull you could get. It's going to cost a lot of money, obviously. But if you just want to go out and get the best roster, you go pay for Corey Robinson. You put him at left tackle, move Barber back to right tackle, or Barber was really good at right tackle.
Yeah.
This offensive line was probably top 15, top 20 in the nation this year. We're looking at a bona fide top 10 offensive line at the very least going into next season. Maybe you don't want to spend that money. Maybe you want to put it somewhere else. Some other good names in the portal. Carver Willis from Kansas State was a Big 12 honorable mention All-American. So he wasn't All-American, but he was an honorable mention for it. So that's a pretty good offensive tackle. And another one, Derek Simmons from Western Carolina. Really good PFF grade. So maybe you wouldn't want to go to the FCS level for a starting tackle at the SEC. But we also do have some freshmen, some freshmen and some like Caden Jones, some younger guys on the team who were 4-star level recruits. So maybe you do trust them a bit to compete with Derek Simmons so you can spend that money instead of going after a Corey Robinson. I would love for us to go after Corey Robinson because we'd have one of the best offensive lines in the country next year, I think. But if we want to spend the money on an elite player somewhere else, I can get it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, I think I would say that offensive line, like especially in solving the tackle thing, because yeah, Barber playing his not really natural side on the left, he's been fine. He's held it
Yeah,
down, but I
inconsistent,
think
I'd
you're
say.
right. Yeah, but I think I think you're right that it would really be a massive benefit to this whole offensive line if you could move him back to the right side and then bring in a bona fide left tackle. And I think that would be something that would be worth the investment because, I mean, if you watch that SEC championship game yesterday and see those defensive lines, like, that's what you're going to have to be able to compete against next year if this team is going to take the kind of leap we're all expecting and hoping that it will. Yeah, I mean, I think the right side especially is kind of where you need to bulk it up, if anything. I mean, like, yeah, it's hard to say like you need a ton of additions because I do think you can kind of trust the evals and the development that the staff has made there because it's been really kind of coming through this, especially this year. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what Damian George does. I think he's kind of maybe the wild card here.
Yeah.
We'll see if he comes back.
So what Chris just said about the wide receiver, sorry, going back.
Yeah.
VB3 is a dynamic wide receiver. Yes, but do you want to trust a freshman when you're looking at the prime years of DJ Lagway?
Yeah.
Like, I've seen comparisons for Vernell Brown of like Antonio Brown. He's what, 5'11". Antonio Brown is also like 5'10", 5'11". So it's like he can be a deep threat for us, obviously. And he could end up being a really good receiver, a 5-star freshman. So it's like he can definitely take that leap. But if you can get a name that's already solid, as that like wide receiver 2, I would like that. But let's go on to the defense. So let's start on the defensive liner. Let's start the edge position. So I was looking at the portal. Now, I really want us to go get a really good pass rusher in the portal. I think that would really help solidify this defense. There's not many in the portal just yet. The best name I saw in the portal was Deshaun Womack, who from LSU, who was a young, talented guy. Not much production. So it's like, at that point, if you're not looking at someone with much production, just go with one of your freshmen, like a Quincy Wiggins and Jaden Woods. So it's like, again, portal doesn't even open until tomorrow. So we'll see what happens there. Because right now you're looking at your edge. You got like TJ Searcy and Jack Pyburn, who are better run stoppers. I think we need to go get a pass rusher unless they have a lot of confidence in developing them. But like we haven't really seen them develop the edge rusher position much.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, Gums is probably the most like productive guy they've had. And he was a 1-year addition. I'm just curious, do you know off the top of your head right now who 247's top ranked edge is in the portal?
Well, one thing I gotta say, Gums is coming back next year.
Yeah.
Okay, you said 1 year. Okay, I was making sure. Oh,
edge. So I meant like a 1-year addition, like this year, like not a guy you've been developing throughout the year. That's what I meant. Yeah, sorry.
So the edge high strength, I think I saw it was a Will Fried or something from Purdue.
According to 247, it's Princewell Umanmiele.
Oh, yeah, because it's his high school ranking.
Crazy,
yeah,
because he doesn't have like portal, especially this early. They haven't necessarily like fixed the portal rankings, and they'll just be like their high school rankings. But like, it's funny because he hasn't produced a ton at Nebraska.
No. That will change.
But yeah, that probably will change. But yes, not necessarily a massive position of strength when you look at the portal so far.
Yeah. Then we can look at the D line or the defensive tackle. Some more names here, I think. So Florida will be losing Cam Jackson and Desmond Watson. So we really need a nose tackle. Right now, the best nose tackle in the portal, really good one, like Keyshawn Silver. The problem is there's not much depth there at this point in the portal. And Keyshawn Silver is really good. He's looking at a lot of money. Like the figures I've heard near $1 million from him. And nose tackles, are they really worth that much? I mean, especially when you're looking to build a bit more around them as well. Another name, though, John Walker. He was a top 100 recruit. Florida finished second in his recruiting behind UCF. With UCF not losing Gus Malzahn, I wouldn't be surprised. I'd actually expect him to end up entering the portal. And he had a really good freshman year, missed all, if not most, of this past season with injury. So if he does enter, had a really good freshman season. We didn't really see much of him this year. I think he's someone that could be a really good add-on to this team. Another guy to look at. Oh, wait, no, I only had two. Never mind. I don't know why I said another guy. I was looking at the O-line. But yeah, so those two are the names I'm looking at right now. Keyshawn Silver would be the elite splash. That if we just have infinite money, that's the guy you go after. But, you do have to budget a bit. We'll get into the freshman class later on.
Well, we just lost Tyler for a second, it seems. But while we will get him back, while we wait to get him back, I will just talk. Oh, never mind. Looks like he is back. Hello.
I want to go the message from Chris Smith. Shivers, the new freshman, going to be a monster. Yeah, you don't really trust a freshman nose tackle to start in the SEC. And Jamari Lyons, I heard his injury is really bad. I really like Lyons from when we saw from his first 2 seasons. But with that injury, I don't know what's going to happen there.
Yeah, the kind of rule of thumb here with young guys is that the further away from the ball they are, the easier it is to get playing time. So like when you're in the trenches, it's just tough to get that year one. Like going back to the receiver thing, like same thing with Vernell Brown. It's just you don't want to put that on a young guy because you don't want to have that expectation just because for one reason or another, a lot of these guys aren't ready. Now, as we'll get into in a little bit, if Florida had gotten like a Dallas Wilson, maybe I feel a little bit different about the need for a receiver in the portal. But just in general, you don't really want to expect that out of a freshman. And if you get it and they beat out a veteran, that's fantastic. But
although I will say about the freshman receivers, you've seen a lot of them step up this year. I mean, Jeremiah Smith is going to be is already a top 5 receiver. Ryan Williams is a really elite receiver. Cam Coleman, elite receiver. I mean, you're seeing.
But then Micah Hudson didn't play. Like, you know what I mean? So
that's the thing. Don't really want to trust him. Linebacker. I don't really need to look in the portal for linebacker. Our linebacker room is set. We might lose guys there. So I'm not, and still be really good. So I'm not really worried about us needing to look at the linebacker position.
I mean, do you still think it's possible that like Shamar could leave?
Well, we're going to talk about that at the next.
Oh yeah, true. I guess Sorry, it does. I guess that fits more in the next segment.
Yeah. So corners. So I want us to take a corner. I think if we can go get Jason Marshall replacement for this year, because how much do we trust Devin Moore to stay healthy? Dijon Johnson, we have some guys that get another year to develop. I do like Ben Hanks a lot. He is a freshman, but I do think he could get some good playing time. Yeah. I mean, back then when we were just like producing corner after corner, Tease Tabor, Quincy Wilson, CJ Henderson, Kyrie Elam, Jason Marshall. You saw those guys play a decent bit as a freshman and show splash. I could see Ben Hanks being that guy next year as well. But I do want us to go get a solid cornerback one. Not really many in the portal right now. Only one I had written down, Tony Grimes, former 5-star corner, went to North Carolina, transferred to UNLV, had a really good season for UNLV this year. He's from Virginia, just entered back in the portal. Probably wants to come back out east. I think it would be a good addition to be the corner one, where it's not, maybe he's not an elite corner. There's going to be more corners that enter the portal, obviously. But if he's the best name, he is someone that maybe not guaranteed to be a starter because you do have young guys who can compete with him and make the room better.
Yeah, I'd say now that we're getting into the secondary, this is where I think Florida has the most work to do in terms where they really need to bulk up and going into next year. We saw, I think the secondary was the weakness down the stretch of the season, even though the defense was all in all playing better. Yeah, I mean, losing Jakeem to the portal, that's tough. I get it, but a guy that had shown some nice flashes. But yeah, with him gone, Jason Marshall gone, I would say at this point, wish the kid well, hope everything works out for him. But I would not say we can count on Devin Moore at all. I mean, it's just he's just not been able to stay healthy.
Jakeem also isn't officially gone. I heard there's a chance that we might bring him back.
Well, that would be huge. It doesn't change that it's a big need, but the depth that would make me feel a lot better about the depth there.
But what Chris said, Kermani,
maybe, but
what we saw in that Texas game,
he kind of got cooked. Everything other than that pick six, he kind of got cooked.
Yeah, outside the Kentucky game, he just was not good.
But even in the Kentucky game, didn't he get cooked and then the guy dropped a touchdown or something like that? Or am I thinking of a different game? I thought in the same game that he had the pick six, he got beat.
Because he also had a really nice pass deflection in the end zone in that Kentucky game. So I
I
don't
might be thinking of
remember if
something else.
ended up getting. I don't remember if he got cooked in that Kentucky game. But then
Yeah, we'll see.
safety, we both agree this is the biggest need.
Yeah.
We did just get 2 top 100 safeties. When we talked about safety being the biggest need, I didn't have either of them on the radar at that point.
No, not at all.
Those kind of came out of
Those were like
nowhere.
the most shocking late recruiting movements. Yeah.
I do think safety right at this point might be the second most stacked position in the portal at this point. There's some really good ones like Dylan Tienman out of Purdue. I mean, I don't know realistically how much of a chance there is he comes down to Florida.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you pay him the money, anything's possible. CJ Hurd at FAU. He was committed to FSU for the longest time. Ended up flipping to FAU. Had a really good freshman season. I don't know if the is FAU in the American? I think so. They are now.
Yes.
Don't know if the American has like the freshman All-American teams and stuff. But I wouldn't be surprised to see CJ Hurd on that list. So I want a more experienced guy. But CJ Hurd can definitely be good next year. And so don't really know much about this guy. Zachariah Poyser out of Jacksonville State. Or is it Jacksonville? It's an FCS school, I think. It's not Jacksonville State with Rich Rod at.
Jacksonville University. Is it JU?
I'm not. It might
Jacksonville,
be Jackson State. I'm not sure. I can't remember at this point. He might be Jacksonville State, actually. But I saw someone mention him. He was really good safety. He had some good numbers, decent PFF grade. Could be someone that we go after. Oh, wow. I just received breaking news. Elijah Badger will play in the bowl game.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's not, I wouldn't say that's shocking to me. Does that,
No.
I mean, are you super surprised by that?
No, I wouldn't say I'm super surprised, but it's nice to see.
No, yeah. I mean, it's like you kind of just expect generally the guys that are leaving aren't going to play. And if they do, it's nice.
Yeah. So what do you have on safety?
Safety. Yeah. I was going to say, yeah, I mean, like you said, it's still a big need. I think we kind of, maybe Bryce Thornton is a guy that can develop into a long-term starter there. You got just another name I would throw in there if you want to go with more of the talent over experience route is Kylan Jackson, an LSU transfer, former blue chipper. Didn't get a ton of playing time at LSU, but was only a 2023 recruit. So he's still pretty young.
Yeah, it definitely is. We've seen it in the SEC in the SEC. Some freshman safety really step up. Malachi Starks at Georgia may have been the best safety in college football as a true freshman. And you saw it last year with Caleb Downs at Alabama, who was also maybe the best freshman in the country as a best safety as a freshman in the country. And now was at Ohio State, obviously.
Yep.
But still, he was really good. And I mean, when you get 2 top 75 level guys like Lagonza Hayward and Hilton Stubbs, maybe there's a possibility that one of them steps up. I do think something we'll get into next, actually, an interesting point. I wonder if Jordan Castell can enter the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, you and I have both basically come on here many times and said that Florida should be actively shopping for his replacement. So, it wouldn't shock me.
Yeah, one thing that I like about Florida actually playing an earlier bowl game, maybe some starter level players or depth level players that would enter the portal, maybe decide to actually wait and play the game and then enter the portal. So I think that's something like a Jordan Castell. If we were playing after the deadline, he doesn't have to enter the portal until after the game, get some more tape on film if he did enter the portal, So that definitely interests me. I also do like Bryce Thornton. He played a really good last 2 games of the season.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to see him develop. We haven't had a good safety in so long.
Yeah, it's just, again, my concern there is like Castell also showed some nice flashes as a freshman, and then just that didn't really kind of lead to development this year. So, I would just kind of caution there. But yeah, like Thornton definitely looked like there's potential there down the stretch, no doubt.
Yeah. Our biggest portal grab should be to get an offensive coordinator. I heard some couple names.
You said
I can't really reveal them, but what'd you say?
No, I was just saying, Richard said you said it, man. I completely agree.
One thing I will say, Tulane fans, there's a chance Tulane fans could get real mad at us. And not just for the game, but hire Shane Matthews as OC.
I'll say this. Do you think he's gonna? I don't think Billy's gonna hire an OC. I think he should. I absolutely think he should. I just don't think he will.
Do I think he will? Oh man. Seen some people like insiders say like 95% chance. So really confident he's going to hire an OC. Oh man. I think he will.
You think so?
I think end of the day he will.
Okay.
I think there's going to be some pressure on him to hire an OC. So yeah,
See, that's what I question. I'm not sure there will be. I think if the Strickland statement had come out before the Texas game and then you just finished 5-7 or whatever, then there probably would be. I think the way they ended gave Billy a little bit more like leeway to not be forced into as many changes. Is kind of how I suspect that may have gone down. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll know the answer pretty soon because I mean it's the season's over. So
well, the thing is with recruiting now happening so quickly, you can kind of slow down on hiring your guys because it's like now that signing day isn't the second week of December. It's like it doesn't really matter if you hire the guy; they're not going to be able to build a relationship with them. So they can now take their time, which we know Billy's staff, good and bad, has been on history of maybe taking their time with some things to fully evaluate who they do want to end up hiring. I can't stand watching a Billy offense. It's about as much fun as going. Well, I think the problem with Billy's offense so far was Mertz wasn't built for the offense. His offense is about having a mobile QB and throwing the deep ball, which in theory is actually a really exciting offense. I mean, with Lagway, it was pretty exciting when he got the deep ball. If Lagway can get the short game working out, then I don't think the problem is the offense. I just think it's partially play calling and then like the minor things that happen because Billy's calling plays. Like those special team mistakes that end up happening. 10 men on the field, 12 men on the field,
Yeah, I don't think the offense is bad, like philosophically.
Yeah,
like I think what Billy's trying to do is more or less fine, and I think Billy can design the heck out of a run game. Like I don't think anyone would deny that. But the passing game, I mean, I think you kind of said it. Like it relies so much on the deep ball, and I don't think the lack of intermediate success is because Lagway just can't throw those balls, or because we don't have receivers that can run short routes. Like I think Billy struggles to design quick passing plays that aren't home run shots, and I think that's where getting someone else, or even just letting Russ Callaway like have a louder voice in the room, a guy with an air raid background. Like I think that's my biggest criticism with Billy is I don't think he is a good enough play caller to be doing that as a head coach in the SEC when so very few do. I mean, Kirby was the best defensive play caller in the country. I don't think he's ever called plays at Georgia defensively. Maybe I'm wrong.
He's also had some really good defensive coordinators. So
well, he has, but my point is he recognized that he could, he could focus on other things and hire elite people to handle it.
That's true. Yeah, I think we do need to hire. I mean, we've said it plenty of times. We do need to hire one. I think we end up doing. I've heard a lot more smoke about it now. I've heard some names than I was hearing last offseason when they said we might. So I think we do end up hiring an offensive coordinator, a play caller. So I think it does end up helping us a lot next season.
I mean, I hope you're right, because I think I've still been a little bit hesitant to get like too far on the hype train because I still have some concerns. Billy hiring a play caller would ease a lot of them. Like I would go into this year feeling a lot more confident about the ability to take a leap if he ultimately does that. Not only because I think it would make the offense better, because I think it would prove that Billy can recognize when changes need to be made, even if they're not things he wants to do. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But we're talking about getting an offensive coordinator. We're going to be losing players. So I think we need to talk about who will the Gators be losing, whether that's to the NFL, seniors, or the transfer portal. Let's kind of do it like how we just did with who do the Gators need to get inside the portal, go position. Let's look at the QB room. Graham Mertz, senior, he's done. No more college eligibility left. Don't know what he's going to be doing. Maybe he gets a chance in the NFL. I do know he started a foundation for like houses in Alachua. So like building houses in Alachua. So I think that's that's pretty good for him. I think Clay Millen transfers. From what I heard, he got straight up beat out by Aiden Warner. And I don't want Aiden Warner to be the second best QB on the roster. I don't think Clay Millen wants to be the fourth best QB on the roster. I think Trammell passes Warner next year. But Yeah, I think Millen transfers, and this doesn't really affect this room that much. This room is still DJ Lagway, if he's the best QB in the country, is an A+ room.
Yeah, and I think like it's hard to imagine they would portal anyone that like if anything happens to DJ Lagway, like that's what this operation all centers around. Like,
yeah,
the depth at the position doesn't really matter because you need Lagway to be healthy. That's the whole value proposition here.
Yeah, it's like if we can get a guy like a Zach Piner in a grad transfer who's decent, maybe you still have a decent chance of getting some wins. But this QB room is really built around DJ Lagway.
Yeah.
Which, when you have special talents like Lagway, not many teams end up having elite players behind them, you know? So, looking at the running back room, Montrell Johnson, senior, he's gone. Cam Carroll, I assume, is also done.
Yes.
Never played here. I think he had like 2 snaps in his entirety.
Yeah, had battled injuries.
Yeah, I think it's a medically induced retirement
or
stepping away, whatever.
Yeah.
Running back room should be fine. Jaden Ball looks like a stud. Jacoby Jackson looks like a stud. Trayon Webb is pretty dang good. You still got a freshman. This is the one where I don't know if KD Daniels leaves. Because you see videos, it looks like he's having fun. But he's going to be buried in that running back room. I think Daniels is a really good back. I really like what I saw from him coming out of high school. Jaden Ball just looks really good. Jacoby Jackson, they trust Trayon Webb a lot. I just don't see where Daniels in his career ends up getting that playing time.
Yeah, even with Webb too, who like I know Webb is like fired up about being a Gator. Like there's no sign at all that he wants to leave, and I'd say the same is true for KD Daniels. But
Webb announced he's returning.
Was that? No, sorry. Let me kind of complete my thought here, because what I'm saying is like I don't think it's so hard for me to imagine just looking at the names in this room that both of those guys are here beyond spring.
Yeah, that's
like beyond the spring. That's what I'm saying. Like I know Webb said he's coming back, but like if he's in the 4th spot in that depth chart, that might change when the spring window opens. So I don't think you see attrition here now. I think you probably, I say almost certainly will see attrition before like fall camp.
Yeah, you almost certainly have to at least lose one of them. Like,
yeah.
I mean, hey, if they don't, I mean, that's pretty nice. Then let's look at the wide receiver room. So Elijah Badger, Chimere Dike, Jaquavian Frazier. Those are the 3 guys that are out of eligibility. Badger is going to end up getting drafted in the NFL. I think he can work his way up to that day 2, maybe that 3rd round, if he has like a good what was it go NFL combine. I know he also is in one of the like Senior Bowl games in Orlando. Can't remember what it's called, but he's in one of those, so I think he's going to end up being an NFL player. Chimere Dike, he could get a shot. I mean, he's a solid wide receiver. Don't know what's going to... I mean, he's gone, so we'll see what happens with him. And Jaquavian Frazier, he got a degree here. Don't really see him having any chance in the NFL. We'll see what he does.
Dude that just hung around on the team for a long time. Like, he's just been here and will just randomly make a play here and there.
He was a 4-star receiver out of Denell in high school. So it's not like he just got.
He was like a veteran when he caught that 2-point conversion from Anthony Richardson.
He was, yeah. I mean, he's from Marion County here, where I am, and when I see us get a 4-star receiver from my area, I'm like, hey, I hope he works out. I mean, he just stuck. He got his degree at UF. Maybe he ends up going to coaching. So that could be something interesting to look at there. But the names I'm really interested in looking at here. So Andy Jean's already entered the portal. He's gone. I expected that. The name I'm looking at to enter still, Marcus Burke. I think Burke can still be a good receiver. We've seen him be inconsistent. Florida's had good receivers, so it's like he's been buried a bit. I wonder if he enters, because I don't think he's going to end up being a starter or even in like the top 4 next season. Now even top 5 probably next season. So I wonder if he ends up just taking that chance and going to play lower level, try to make a name for himself and try to get to the league. So I don't think it's a bad loss. I think keeping him would be cool. It's a good have all that depth and a veteran on your in the locker room. Seems like a good locker room guy. So I do wonder if he ends up deciding to leave or stay.
Yeah, because like my thing with Burke is that, I mean, he's a guy that's been around here for a pretty long time and hasn't really been able to make a major impact, just hasn't really gotten the opportunity to make a major impact.
Yeah.
But it's like on the one hand, like I could totally see him choosing to leave, but it's like on the other, we don't know what Florida's going to do in the portal, and like there will potentially be opportunities in this receiving core. Like, I mean, we're assuming Florida's going to go aggressive at receiver in the portal, but it's not a done deal till it's done in the NIL era, especially. So I don't think you can count your eggs before count your chickens before they hatch there. Like, I think, I don't know. Like, I think you're probably right. I think he's really the only one here. I mean, Gene's obviously already gone. I don't think that surprised either of us.
No.
Obviously keeping Trey, at least it seems, we'll see what happens there through the spring and stuff. But yeah, Burke is really the only one that I would say is like a serious question. And like, I could see him at least choosing to stay for the spring just to compete.
Yeah, maybe. Another interesting, TJ Abrams made a really interesting tweet. It was just like eye emojis when the like other people started entering the portal. I don't know what to expect from that. I don't think he's gonna leave. Maybe there's someone we might be bringing in. Maybe he was thinking of someone who entered the portal.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's also, haven't there been some rumors that like Billy Gonzalez could be retiring or something of the sort?
I have heard those rumors. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not reporting anything here. That's just
there's
something I've heard some whispers about that being a possibility.
I've heard a couple
to spend more time with his family.
I've heard a couple, like Ron Roberts as well, might retire.
Yeah.
And so maybe it could be that. Maybe they told him who they might hire and he really likes the name. So yeah, so let's move on from receiver. We go look at the offensive line, who I didn't write down the offensive line. Okay, well, the guys we do lose from the offensive line, Mike Williams already entered the transfer portal. And we lose Brandon Crenshaw-Dixon. Dixon was a really good starter for us. He was a solid SEC starter. Can't complain about him. You can be better, but it can also be worse. So
I mean, it's a real gamble taking portal guys out of the offensive line guys out of the portal. So if you get one that's capable of starting in the SEC, that's a win, even if it could have been better.
I'm him telling you right now, the freshman coming out of Fort Lauderdale American Heritage is a Trevor Etienne clone. Talking about Byron Louie. Mike my words, he is a beast. I mean, hey, I trust Jabbar Jaluk's evaluations.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked at all. I just don't know if he's going to get playing time as a freshman because the room looks really dang good. So,
yeah.
I
don't know if we thought Ball would see as much playing time this year as he did, and the situation just kind of arose.
American Heritage, you also talked about, has a real good history of producing running backs.
Yeah, it's a good history of producing everyone. Honestly,
yeah, that's true. The QB for American Heritage, Dia Bell, the 10th ranked player in the country in the 2026 class, he is committed to Texas, and we already have our QB. But hey, you never know. I mean, who expected Tramel Jones to end up being in our class this year? So, but also looking at the offensive line still, I'm trying to think of guys who could end up entering the portal or transfer. Yeah, transfer. Don't think there's any other seniors. Damian George.
Yeah, he's a redshirt junior, right?
Yeah, so we don't know if George is going to do because we're some talented guys below him. So it's like a Roderick Kearney and Jason Zandamela, who were both former top 120-ish recruits. So it's like you got those hungry guys. They could end up passing him. I don't think so. George played really well for us. Could also see him try to take a shot at the NFL. So I think he really found his groove at right guard. So it could shake. Maybe he gets some good positive feedback from from scouts.
Yeah, and I mean you've also got Bryce Levette played a decent amount of snaps this year too at right guard, so you got potential replacement on the roster if he were to leave.
Yep. All right, then if we go to the defensive line, this is where we get our biggest losses, probably most losses. Both your nose tackles, Desmond Watson and Cam Jackson. Cam Jackson going to probably get a chance at the NFL. Don't know about Des Watson with all that size, but losing both of them really hurts. We already talked about the transfer who we're going to need to bring in. Going to try to find someone. But, I mean, I really like Stephon Shivers, as Chris said earlier about him. I do like him in the future. Don't know about right now. On the D line, we also lose Joey Slackman, a senior, 1-year Penn transfer. Didn't really work out. Maybe he helped Jack Pyburn develop a bit. So I think that's something that interesting to look at. Guys, we do lose. Kelby Collins has already entered the portal. The problem with Kelby Collins, we moved him inside. Should have been an edge.
Yeah.
And
I also like as a freshman.
He had like a lot of QB pressures as a freshman, actually.
Yeah.
Last season. So I found it really interesting why we did end up moving him inside. Also heard that may not be the biggest guy in practice. So maybe that's also part of him not developing as much. And then we also lose Justice Boone. We already talked about this when it first happened because it broke when we just went on air. Not really a loss. Just didn't end up developing. There's guys in position that we like a lot more, like Tyreek Sapp, Jack Pyburn, Cam James. So don't really see much of a loss there. And we do need some D-line. It's mostly the nose tackle. That's really the biggest concern. Don't know what Lions injury is going to heal from or if it will. What do you got to say about the D-line?
Yeah, I mean, I think you kind of nailed it. You need starting caliber players there because of what you're losing. I mean, Banks, we could see Banks go too. Banks has the option to come back, but I wouldn't be shocked if he left.
There's another thing about Banks. Apparently, Texas A&M is trying to take some of our defensive linemen. You have Chaos Spencer, who's now the D-line coach at Texas A&M. So he obviously has a good relationship with our defensive line guys. We could see one of them. I mean, Texas A&M has a lot of money. They could come in and snatch one of them. I'm not going to bet on that because, I really like Caleb Banks and Tyreek Sapp. They could be one of the best defensive line duos in the country next season. So I hope we don't lose them. But another name also, TJ Searcy. Yeah, I don't really think he's that good. Decent run stopper. We have plenty of those. Doesn't show much flash as a pass rusher. So,
yeah, I'm glad you brought up the thing about transfer inducement because it actually was a good segue into like the other thing I wanted to talk about here, which is, this is kind of a good example of it, but it's also more of a general point. Like looking at a guy like LJ McCray, do you worry about a school coming in and being like, hey, you didn't play a ton here. Like, here's a ton of money to come here. Or like just with any kind of guy like that, like a surprise transfer loss that's not because of playing time, but just because someone comes in and drops the bag, you know?
I was going to talk about more with the linebacker room about that. LJ McCray, I don't really have that much worry about, especially Boone's leaving. Did we talk about anyone else in the defensive line who's also Joey Slackman's leaving?
Yeah, Slackman's
So I think LJ McCray is a defensive lineman. So him specifically, not really. What I'm more worried about is like if A&M just says, hey, we'll pay you all the money in the world to come here for a Caleb Banks or a Tyreek Sapp. I don't think Sapp, but Banks I'd be a bit more worried about on the D-line. But so going into the portal. So 2 names I've heard. Shamar James. So Shamar James, 2-year starter, would go into his 3rd year. Really, he's a good linebacker. Maybe not the most outstanding linebacker. Maybe we've seen him reach maybe his potential. I don't want to say that's still in college. But you could see a team. You look at our linebacker depth. Pup Howard probably outplayed him this year. You look at Jaden Robinson, who's another name that, the backup linebacker. That's where you were kind of going out the name. I've heard that if someone was going to leave, it might be him. Jaden Robinson, I think he played really well. And Miles Graham, especially at the end of the year, Miles Graham was amazing for us. He was everywhere on the field. Then you also look at us bringing in Ty Jackson, who Napier said has the best high school film he's ever seen as a junior. So they expect a lot from him. Plus, like Aaron Childs. I always get him so confused, man. Aaron Childs, you look at him as well in the linebacker room. So if someone's going to leave, it's either going to be someone spending a lot of money to bring in Shamar to be their best linebacker, or it's going to end up being Jaden Robinson, still a lot of development, and it could be like a Texas A&M, could be a Georgia. Someone could just go and pony up the money to say, hey, you can start here, or Shamar James is like, hey, you see the young guys, they're already trying to pass them up for you. So it's like, I know Shamar has also been receiving a lot of money offers both off seasons, especially from Georgia and Alabama. He could go back home to Alabama. That Bama defense struggled a bit, so they're probably going to try to fix it up a good bit. And Shamar James could be the leader on that defense for him. So if anyone's gonna end up leaving because of the portal and not because they're on the depth, it's gonna probably end up being Shamar or Jaden Robinson.
Yeah, I could see Shamar. I could see Shamar kind of being a guy that, like, if someone were to come in with a big offer, we just wouldn't necessarily match because the resources are best used elsewhere, and we've got good depth of position.
Yep.
Another guy leaving. Sorry if you said this and I missed it. Not that it's a massive loss,
Yeah,
but Derek Wingo.
Oh yeah, the linebacker's leaving. Derek Wingo, senior. He's obviously gone. You know, we flipped him from Penn State on signing day when he ended up committing. I don't know why we moved him to linebacker. Should have been a defensive edge for us, an edge rusher for us. Speed just wasn't all of that. You know, it's nice to have those veterans in the locker room.
Yeah.
Don't know where he ends up going from there. And also RJ Moten, who ended up being decent as a linebacker. Obviously wasn't the best safety for us, didn't have enough speed, but he was a good linebacker. The injuries we experienced on defense filled in a decent bit there. We also had Deuce Spurlock near the transfer portal. That's just the attrition, you know.
Yeah.
Not much.
That's an encouraged transfers move.
Just took him as a depth piece. You know, you do need those practice squad guys. So got him from Michigan. But yeah, don't hate to see him leave, especially when you bring in Ty Jackson and Miles Johnson. And then let's get to the DB room. So the guys graduating, Jaquez Bridges being really good for us this year at both safety and corner. Probably better at corner where we saw him at the end of the year. DJ Douglas didn't really do much good for us. Mm-hmm. So the question, Asa Turner. So from what I've heard, he's just going to leave. He's done. But he could apply for a medical redshirt and probably get it.
Because he only played in the first game, right?
Yeah, I only played like the first half of the first game.
Yeah.
So what I heard, he can try to get a medical redshirt and return, and he probably would. But I just heard that it's not going to happen. So,
I mean, it's also like, I mean, no disrespect to the guy, but it's like we barely saw him play. And I think Florida is going younger at the position. I think they have guys that they like as developmental guys. I just think that's a place where you could probably just move on.
Yeah. And then we look at guys transferring. Jakeem Jackson, we talked about it there earlier. He entered the portal. From what I've heard, Florida is going to try to get him back. If we want him back, he probably would return. He's a really talented guy. But after, this was his second season. He suffered an injury earlier in the year. Yeah. Didn't play a lot. Didn't really play at all much because of the injury. And it's like, even when he played early in the year, still very raw, which, you know, is fine early in the season. You want to see him get better, but he didn't have the opportunity. And when you're getting into that third season, do you really want that developmental guy on that roster? Probably paying a good amount because he was a high-rated recruit. So it would be nice to get him a return. Maybe Will Harris has done a great job at developing. So, you know, maybe Will Harris can develop him there. But I think you can just go into the portal and get some more proven guys. So, and then the name we talked about, Jordan Castell. I mean, he's gotten a lot of hate from Gator fans. I just feel like we're at the point where we just need to go get someone better. And you're looking at a guy who started 2 seasons at the University of Florida. He can go start for any other school in Florida probably. And
I think he could go start like at power conference program, like a lot of power conference programs. Yeah.
You know where I see it? Pitt. I could go see him start at Pitt today.
There does seem to be a pipeline of that, doesn't there?
Yeah. You saw it with Donovan McMillan and Corey Collier.
I think you're right about that. About that.
So it's like, you know, he could go start at Pitt and maybe they can develop him. Pitt's pretty good defensive developers there. So I just think it's time to move on from that and get the guy in the portal. No one else really we're losing from the safety or quarterback room I'm missing.
I don't really think it's pretty young group.
Ethan Pouncey, I think.
No disrespect to Ethan Pouncey. I'm not sure I realized he was still on the roster.
No, I don't. I know he suffered a lot of injuries.
Yeah. So
it's like, you know, he's a Pouncey. They have a younger, I don't know if it's a younger brother or a younger cousin, who's also a safety, Aiden Pouncey, who's like 130th in the class of 2026. Ooh, so if we had to bet, I'd probably put him in the class right now.
Yeah.
So maybe hopefully he can be better because Ethan was still like a top 150 recruit coming out of high school. So, do you have anything
pretty young position. I was saying, sorry, pretty young position group overall. I mean, I think you're more worried about who all comes back of that group because there's more young promising guys than there are spots. But
something we didn't talk about, punter. So we bring a punter in as a recruit. From what I've heard, we're gonna look for a transfer to start.
Yeah.
Trace Mack returns for his third season next year, or no, his last season next year.
He should have a redshirt year though.
Yeah,
right?
he does a redshirt year. Yeah, he might go to the NFL after it though, with how he's playing at the end of this season.
What I'm looking at has him listed as a junior, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Like listed as a junior right now.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So maybe next year is his last year. I don't know.
But when you lose Jeremy
because he was our kickoffs. He was the kickoff specialist, even when he wasn't the starting place kicker. That's why. Okay.
But Jeremy Crawshaw leaves. I've heard we're going to go into the portal, look for a punter, and not just go with the freshman. So that's interesting to see. Don't really know much about portal punters, obviously.
Yeah, it's outside my area of expertise. I will punt on that one. Pun intended.
Sweet. All right. So next, or do you want to talk about the playoff now or after?
I think we should get into. I think it's been long enough. I think we should talk about the recruiting class.
The recruiting class. Okay, let me pull up the recruiting class. The way I was thinking we do this. I'm gonna go position group, and we're just gonna grade it. Talk about who we have in it. So let's start QB. Let's just we have a formula going. Wait. So let's talk about our recruiting class. We're going to grade it a bit. Just go over the entire thing, how they fit into our roster. So let's start at QB, Tramel Jones. So here's the thing. We have DJ Lagway on roster. He was a freshman this season, 5-star last class. Tramel Jones, if you just look at it that we don't have that superstar QB already there, and Tramel Jones is the only QB you have, I'd probably put it in like the C range.
Yeah.
Because I don't think Tramel Jones has a high future. Maybe he could be decent for us, But the fact that he's more of like a backup locker room guy, I'm going to give it like a B.
Yeah,
because you're more bringing him in as just the backup. I mean, I don't want to hate on the kid. Maybe he ends up being really good for us, I mean,
you should be developing more than one quarterback at the same time. Like there's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with having a guy that you see as being a 2 or 3 year project before he's a potential starting caliber player. If you've got a DJ Lagway.
Yeah. I also know we have Will Griffin in the next class that I account for this. Will Griffin, he's in like the mid hundreds right now, I think. I think he's someone who could skyrocket a bit more up the rankings. And someone I think who you look more to as the guy is the next QB at Florida. You don't look at Emory Jones as a former Florida QB. You look at the Kyle Trask as the former Florida QB. So that's kind of where I see it is, Will Griffin could be that next Florida QB. But I don't want to hate on Tramel. Obviously, 4-star recruit that's still really good. Maybe he does end up being decent. Then we look at the running back room. So I have a hard time grading it because we're not getting the highest rated guys. We're getting 2 4-stars and a 3-star walk-on. So normally you look at it, to those 2 guys at that range, and you're probably thinking, okay, maybe B-, like 2 4-stars is still good, but neither of them are the highest rated guy. But then I look at Jabbar Jalouk and his history. These are the guys. Trevor Etienne was like 200th ranked, and now really good running back Etienne ended up being. Jaden Ball was in like the 300s. Jaden Ball might be the best freshman running back in the SEC. Well, I'm gonna let you rank this one, grade this one first.
I actually honestly think you were spot on with B-. I think B-. I'd say like B-, like somewhere in that range, because I think like it's not like a group that blows you away, but I think like quarterback, when you contextualize it, like this is a deep room. You got 3 guys that are joining an already deep room, and none of them are gonna. Unless one of them is like that good that you can't keep them off the field, I don't think we would necessarily expect any of these guys are major contributors next year, like guys that are touching the ball a lot.
Would you be surprised if a Byron Louie or a Waltez Clark by the end of their career at Florida ends up being like a top 5 running back in the SEC?
I mean, not as I'm probably more so. I'd be less surprised with Byron Lewis. Like, I mean, I don't think it's outside of out of the question. I mean, I will say, Billy does like to split his carries, so it's
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
hard
well,
for
I'm not
like
just
one
talking
guy
about
to
stats
emerge.
wise. I'm
Yeah,
talking about like as a player,
yeah. I mean, like I'd certainly say like it's within the realm of possibility. I think especially Byron Lewis has a nice ceiling. Will admit that I haven't seen as much of Waltez Clark.
Because like if you have a player who ends up being who ends up being a top 5 running back in the SEC, it's like you'd give him at least like an A minus, right? Maybe a B plus. And it's like I wouldn't be surprised if either of those guys end up being that with how good Jabbar Jalook has been at developing and just eyeballing talent. So I'm gonna give it a B plus, and that's more on Jabbar Jalook, just getting him the benefit of the doubt. I mean, because we haven't really needed the 5 stars,
Yeah, and that's fair. It's just like if you look at I mean, Jaden Baugh became an incredible running back this year, but I don't think you would have graded him high. Like, I think you got to look at the prospect as what they are as a prospect and just know.
Are they underrated as the prospect though? Because I mean, you're telling
me I mean, is it evaluation? Is it development? Is it both? I don't know. But they've been good at that for sure. There's no doubt.
That's what I'm trying to like point out there. Like, are the recruiting sites missing the evaluation on them?
Yeah, maybe, maybe Jalook is just really good at quickly developing these guys. Like maybe it's probably a little bit of both too.
Because it's Montrell. They had Elijah Mitchell too, I'm not sure he recruited Elijah Mitchell, but ended up being a solid running back in the NFL.
I think he did, but I'm not 100%.
So Elijah Mitchell, Montrell, they had another running back too after him who ended up being like 1,000-yard rusher for them at Louisiana. Then Montrell Johnson, and then Trevor Etienne, and then Jaden Ball, Jacoby Jackson showed flashes. So it's like,
and part of this too is like as we said, Billy is really good at designing run schemes. Like this is his
very
strength
true
as an offensive coach.
All right, enough on the running backs. Let's get to the receiver room.
Yeah.
So 5-star receiver Vernell Brown, the 33rd ranked prospect on the 247 composite. They also bring in 4-star Deshaun Montgomery. I think I feel like Gator fans don't give Montgomery a lot of credit, especially because we thought we were going to get Dallas Wilson. I think Deshaun Montgomery is a pretty good player in the top 150, top 175.
Top 175. Range. Yeah, top exactly 175 on the composite.
And then we bring in Muez Tanakura. That's probably like the guy that you look at as like, oh, he's the underrated gem in the class, So to give it, so you bring in the 5-star, you bring in the 4-star, you bring in the 3-star, the trifecta right there. This class would have been an A+ if they got Dallas Wilson, because 2 5-stars. That would have been the first time Florida had gotten 2 5-stars since 2003, I think. 2 5-star receivers. But but you just bring in the 1, Vernell Brown, who's a really good legacy commit. Deshaun Montgomery, 4-star, plus Muiz. You gotta give him a lot of credit for a 5-star. I'm gonna give it A-.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's like I kind of had to fight my initial instinct to give it like a B+ because there is a 5-star in there. It's just really hard because from all accounts, it sounds like Florida did all the legwork to flip Dallas Wilson shy of getting his signature on a piece of paper. Like, I mean, it sounds like he literally was like telling people that like on both sides that he was going to Florida.
He did. Yeah, he told people at Florida and Miami and Oregon. Oregon flipped him like the last second. Not flip.
Massive bummer. I mean, that's a guy. He's like 6'3.5", like great size.
Day one,
exactly what this team would have needed, man. That one hurt. So
my personal comparison for him would be George Pickens. George Pickens. So
so that's one. So it's hard for me. Like that's definitely coloring my analysis of this year, just because knowing what could have been.
Yep.
But I think the reason I'll bump it back up to A-, even though that was an extremely disappointing signing day development, is because they kept Deshaun Montgomery in the class, a guy that it really looked like you maybe were going to lose. Probably, I'm sure you would have lost him if you had gotten Dallas Wilson.
That might be the case.
I mean, I have a hard time believing he sticks around because he had Bama and Louisville pushing pretty hard.
If he believes in himself, it's like, hey, who cares what they're ranked? I believe in myself. And
sure,
you're gonna play with DJ
Michigan lost the quarterback commit when they were going to flip Bryce Underwood. Like that's how this works.
They also just got Kirk Herbstreit's son to commit.
Yeah, I saw that. He's a preferred walk-on, I think.
Yeah. Okay, but let's get to the offensive line. So we gotta look at the whole room and like what we do as a whole here. if we go after into the portal and go get that Corey Robinson, get that really good tackle, it's like, excuse me, it's like, I would have loved to go get Solomon Thomas, but you do have to look at like a budget and stuff. And it's really kind of early to judge. Just from the recruits alone, Tavares Dice, he can really play both tackle and guard. So that's the positive of bringing him in. You also have Jahari Medlock, 3-star, and Daniel Pierre-Louis, 3-star. Dice, 4-star tackle. Offensive line is a position more about the development than it is ranking out of high school, especially compared to a lot of positions. I like Dice a lot, but still too low 3 stars. C+.
Yeah,
I do like Dice a lot, so that's kind of why I do give it the plus.
Oh, if it weren't, I mean, I like Dice. I would, because of Dice, I almost made it B- in my head.
Yeah, that's what I was between.
Yeah, I just, outside of him, like Medlock and Pierre-Louis are both just 100% developmental projects. I mean, you never know, but with offensive line, it's very rare to see like guys ranked that low become very early contributors.
Oh, early contributors. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm saying like you're not gonna neither of those guys are gonna play next year. Like I would be shocked if they were not both redshirt candidates next year.
No, I listened to a lot of podcasts and stuff, and they were talking about Bud Elliott. He was talking about it, and he really likes Daniel Pierre-Louis, which is surprising because I haven't heard much people really credit Daniel a lot. So maybe he is kind of underrated. Which happens a lot.
I'm not saying these guys won't be good players. It's just that there's really only one of them you got that you could really see making a major impact in the next 2 years, and that's Dice. Thomas would have been that guy. I mean, I'll be honest with you, though. From everything I understand, it sounds like LSU just diverted all of its remaining NIL to go to him. I'm okay with Florida not matching that for an interior offensive lineman.
Yep.
I
think Dice... Solomon Thomas, I'm pretty sure, is just limited inside to guard. But I heard Dice can go both ways, which in this modern era where you lose so many players to the transfer portal, you never know where you're going to need someone who can just go, okay, we need you at tackle. We need you at guard right now.
Yeah.
So I do think Dice does have some advantages. Plus, you save money in Solomon to go in portal with. So
a lot of this hinges on, a lot of me being okay with all this hinges on the expectation that they're going to be aggressive in the portal. If they're not,
exactly,
we're going to be having a different conversation.
Yep. All right. So next, tight end. Quick. I'm gonna get a tight end C-, D+. Micah Jones. Yeah. I mean, if we go into the portal and do get a Caleb Odom or a Luke Haas, it's like whatever. Then it's like still recruiting class wise. Tight ends really been very underwhelming for us. So, just
and I'm not even sure it's that much higher. If you keep Gelsey in the class, I'm not sure he was gonna change our rating here too much either way. This is a position where you're just gonna have to portal.
Yep.
Unless just a guy like Tony Livingston is just ready to be that guy, but I'm not sure.
Let's get into the defensive line. The defensive line commits. Do you want to include edge? Or do you want to do edge separately?
Let's do edge as its own category.
Okay, so let's start with the defensive line. You have 4-star defensive lineman Joseph Mbachu, originally from Cameroon, I think, or Nigeria.
I don't know, so I don't want to guess.
Yeah, that's what I'm. Yeah. Really high upside guy. When Florida first offered him and he committed, he wasn't even ranked.
Yeah.
So in that quick span, he's played one season of football. He's gone up from unranked to a 4-star guy who's going to continue rising in the rankings. Class, the rankings aren't even done yet, so we'll see where he ends up in the end. But really high upside guy. I could see him finishing in the top 200. I don't really think that's crazy to say. So let me check his composite ranking at this exact moment.
It's I got it up. It's
296. Yeah.
Yep.
So I could see him finishing top 200 and end up being a really good player for us. I mean, I can't say like everybody. Jeremiah McLeod, Georgia really wanted him. He posted a clip from him against Milton, which is a pretty good Georgia school. So I assume they have a decent offensive line where he just ate up their interior of the offensive line and just got in the backfield. I really do like Jeremiah McLeod. Not as much as I like some 5 stars, but for a 4-star ranked 339, I do think McLeod can end up being a good player for us. I mean, again, Stephon Shivers, I do think has a good potential at nose tackle. Has the size for it. If he can develop those moves and everything, do think he can end up being a good player for us. I'm going to give it a B.
I am gonna go B minus, but I understand the logic behind B. Like I think the guys that, like, even though there's no one inside the top 250 in this group, which is not great, you'd like to see that. I think that the guys you took, I mean, like, I care a lot more about the fact that Georgia seemed to really want Jeremiah McLeod than I do about
Shivers.
Shivers than I do about the fact that they're ranked 339 and 501 respectively.
And then Texas wanted Joseph Mbachu. From what I've heard, they were shocked when we flipped him.
Yeah.
Back.
So I mean, these are certainly guys. This isn't like Mullen era where we're getting guys that are overrated and are not getting highly recruited by these other schools. So that, like, 100% understand that.
Highly developmental guys.
Yes, that is the thing. There's not even a guy like an LJ McCray, who I know is kind of, they're like maybe looking more to play the edge, but like there's not that high ranking like guy that you think like he could be a impactful rotational player in year one. That guy's not really there.
No.
So that's why I'm sitting at B minus.
Which honestly though, you look at Gerald Chapman, developed a lot of Tulane Z linemen, really good, beat USC that one year in the Cotton Bowl, I want to say. And then you also look at the fact that our defensive line took a huge step this year in developing Caleb Banks, Tyreek Sapp. So when you have high developmental guys, I mean, Mbachu, we don't know where he's going to end up. We've seen players skyrocket rankings in the final push. So you could talk about Mbachu as a top 200, top 150 level player by the end of class, which would that move him, the D-line class up for you?
Yeah, I think if like Mbachu were to get inside the top 100, top 200, I'd at least be up where you are, up at a B. So
okay, so then let's get to the edge room, which has an argument to be the best room in the class. You look at Jaden Woods, composite 129 out of Shawnee, Kansas. Not really many people expected us to flip him. Committed to Penn State. I mean, look at Penn State's edges like Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis-Sutton. If they want you and you're one of their top guys, I want them. And then you look at Quincy or Jalen Wiggins. Isn't it Quincy Wiggins? Or I'm thinking the LSU guy.
Jalen Wiggins. Yeah,
Jalen Wiggins.
I think LSU guy.
Fell a little bit since when we first committed, but still a really highly talented player in the top 150 of the rankings. So I think Jaden Woods can end up being a really early impact player. His athleticism on the outside, we probably haven't seen since athleticism-wise, maybe Brenton Cox.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah.
But Cox couldn't really put it together. And then before him, Grenard wasn't really the most athletic. Probably Ja'Kai Polite.
Yeah.
Give me 1 second.
You're good. Yeah. No, we'll add to that while waiting for Tyler to come back. Like, I think this edge group, it's a small group. Only two guys, obviously, but I think, both inside the top 150, both guys that I could see making an early impact. I mean, I think Jaden Woods was, I'd say for sure outside of Hilton Stubbs and Lagonza Hayward, who we'll get to, and maybe even including them, was the A, most surprising and B, most impactful flip of the cycle. Because, I mean, this is one that just, it really did not sound like was going to happen, and then it did. And he's a really highly rated player. You're muted, Tyler.
It's not even that it sounded like wasn't going to happen. It was just no one expected it to happen. He visited. I did hear a decent amount of smoke that we had a chance, and then he committed on a Friday. So I was at the ESPN Invitational for the Florida basketball tournament. I checked my phone, and boom, Jaden Woods is committed.
Yeah.
So, and I think Woods is going to be a really good player. His athleticism, former wrestler, which you'd love to see on the defensive line. And it's not that he was a former wrestler turned defensive lineman. He was both. So it's not the potential. He's already building it. So
I think it's cool too. Sorry, you can finish your thought.
No, you go finish what you're saying.
I was saying, I think it's cool too that you're going outside of your pipeline to get a guy like that. I mean, it's not like this is a Florida guy, that Jacksonville kid or something like that, going into Kansas to get a guy that Big Ten schools want. Like, that's pretty cool.
Also, interesting thing about Jaden Woods, he did track and field and discus throwing where he won like the state championship. Mm-hmm. So he does have like that torso, like that rotation with his abdomen strength. So which is really good for an edge rusher. I think Woods might be a bit underrated. I'm going to give it an A-. I'm going to say A-. I mean, there's better guys, but I mean, I don't know. Like, they're both, I think, really good.
I think you getting 2 top 150 edges to me is a massive win. I mean, I think, I was going to say maybe B+ just because there's only 2 of them, but it's like, do you really even need more than that? Like, do you need those spaces on the roster for that right now? Like, I don't know.
No, like, so I'm going to go A-. I think Woods can end up being fair. Like the highest potential guy in this class. It's probably Jaden Woods.
I'd say the guy that's like most likely to potentially outplay their recruiting ranking, maybe him or Byron Lewis, but yeah. Okay.
Well, I think if you're telling me one guy from this class is a top 10 NFL draft pick, and I had to guess it, I would guess Jaden Woods.
Okay, interesting.
That's how I'm looking. I mean, edge rusher, more valuable position.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, edge class. So you're going A- or B+?
I think I agree with you. I think I agree with you on A- there.
All right, the final 2 positions, we're not really going to get into kicker and punter. I mean, but number 1 kicker hit a 63-yarder in Arkansas, A+ there, sure.
Sure.
And
number punter, 1 kicker is awesome.
I don't know much about the punter, so
I don't either. His name is Hayden Craig. He's from Maine. That's about all I got. Maine.
Next Cooper Flag. Let's get into the cornerback. So, cornerback's really interesting. Ben Hanks, all-time leader in interceptions in a season in like the Miami area.
Yeah.
Which, Miami has a ton of really good high schools like Booker T and Miami Palmetto. The one that had like Corey Collier, Jason Marshall, James Williams, Miami Central.
Okay, yeah.
It had all of those guys. Yeah, it is. So it's like there's been a lot of talented DBs. That's that Miami area is where you have like those athletic, fast guys like receivers and corners come out of. So for him to be the all-time leading interception record in a season, he had like 10. So I think Ben Hanks can be really good. He has really good length, that 6'1". I think he can be a good player. Maybe you would have liked to see us take another.
Yeah.
Like if we would have ended up being able to get like a Naeem Offord, then it would be like an A+ class. You only take one. It's hard to grade when you only take one. I'm going to let you grade it first.
Well, because like you're just grading the player.
Mm-hmm.
It is tough because it's a top 80 guy. Like it's a really good player.
Again, I think I compared him to like how we saw Kyer Elam and CJ Henderson earlier.
Yeah.
And Jason Marshall was decent as a freshman too.
I'll go B+ here because it's just one guy. But that's a strong B+. And like, yeah, it would have been nice to get Naeem Offord. I mean, I'm not sure there was really much. Like, I heard like varying degrees of smoke of how real that could have been. But I never really believed there was much of a chance of Florida getting him.
I heard the Tuesday night before signing day, Florida made their final offer.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the offer we're competing with was Oregon and Auburn, and Auburn being the home team. Even if it's like the same offer as Auburn, was like the team he kind of wanted to stay home. But Oregon is just offering a ton of money. But just Ben Hanks, if you were to grade the class like in Ben Hanks as being a first round pick, what would you like grade it? Like, say he's like a top 15 pick, how would you grade it as just one player?
I think that if he's top, I mean that's an A at the minimum.
So I'm also gonna go B+. It's tough because I really like Ben Hanks. But it's just one player. So
looking at Ben Hanks and Vernell Brown for that matter, like is it of any concern to you that 2 of the 4 best players in Florida's class are legacy guys that probably Billy had whoever the coach was had a good chance of getting? We've
seen us miss on these legacy guys a lot under Dan Mullen. Vernell Brown, honestly, I didn't think we were going to get Vernell Brown like a month before he committed. I heard very highly Ohio State was going to get him. And then I started hearing smoke we were leaning for him. So I didn't think we were going to get Vernell Brown at all. And Ben Hanks, Miami really put a pressure on Ben Hanks to try to flip him from us. Like, maybe you could say that, but still, like, they're both really good players anyways. And we've seen us miss those legacy guys while under Dan Mullen. I don't really remember much about the Muschamp era, so it's like...
Yeah, fair point. That was a bigger concern I had before you went and got Lagonza Hayward and
get into the safety room.
Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get into the safety room. You start off.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I mean, this was the one where, I mean, the way it closed was just, unbelievable. I mean, no safeties committed, right? Until then?
Nope.
Yeah.
Nope.
So, I mean, down the stretch, Hilton Stubbs, who had been committed to Miami since I think at least the summer, right?
Well, he committed to USC in the summer, and then I think he flipped to Miami before the season.
Was it right before the season? Okay.
Well, maybe
so former USC commit, flipped to Miami before the season. And then Lagonza Hayward, a guy who Tennessee commit, I hadn't even heard his name until honestly, no, until not on signing day, but until a week or so before, when the smoke started picking up for the Gators. I mean, really big wins. I mean, Stubbs, a guy that Miami really wanted in their class, and Hayward, a guy who decommitted from Tennessee, and Georgia really wanted to flip. Georgia went pretty hard for him, it sounds like. So got a couple recruiting wins over Georgia on National Signing Day. So that was pretty nice. I mean, I think this safety class, I think I'm at a flat A here.
Flat A. So Stubbs, I mean, the fact that they got him back from Miami, Stubbs really did want to be a Gator. Like, he said it, he just didn't trust that Napier would even be here next season. That was really one of the biggest reasons, and I know I hear he's a big NIL guy too. So it's like money, plus the fact that Billy was really at that point, it kind of seemed unlikely Billy would end up being the coach, even in the offseason, with an win total of 4.5. Yeah. So still really impressive to get him. Tramel's teammate, the 57th ranked player in the class. You don't get many of those safeties. The last time we even got a top 100 safety, I'm pretty sure was Corey Collier, who was like 100, or I think it was like 109. So, and then we got two of them, Lagonza Hayward. So I heard Hayward really did want to be a Gator. I heard more than that he wanted to be a Gator more than Stubbs. But again, similar situation with Stubbs. He just really didn't trust. I can say for certain that if Billy Napier's job security was 100% safe going into the season, Hayward never would have been committed to Tennessee. I can't say that about Stubbs in Miami or USC. So the staff, proving him on the field, getting both of them. If it was 2 5-star, what do you consider a A+ class?
An A+ class at any position, it's either got to be multiple 5 stars or a 5-star plus multiple high 4 stars.
Yeah. So I'm probably gonna also have to go A.
Yeah.
Because you can't give it that A+. But I think when you base it on the room and how we've recruited safety over the past 10 years, it's really impressive what they did here.
Well, it's weird to evaluate Will Harris as a recruiter here because it's a 3-man DB class and they're all top 100 prospects. Yep. What do you do with that?
Next year maybe is when we evaluate him even more. There's already some top 100 corners that we're looking at and safeties.
Just a few positions. Obviously this was a small class in general, so it shouldn't be very surprising. But a few positions where it's it's not that the guys we got are bad; it's that we got 1 or 2 of them, and that's just.
But then you also look at the room. Class. The corner room's only losing Jason Marshall and maybe Jakeem Jackson. So if you're just bringing 2 replacements, 1 freshman, 1 transfer, you got the roster, and then the safety room. We do lose more in the safety room. But I also think we need, if we're going to win next season and next 2 seasons, you do need multiple transfers. So it's not even like we're under recruiting the position. It's just we're getting what we can. If Ben Hanks were a 5-star corner, if you were the 15th ranked player, would that be enough to make it an A+ class? Just 1 is
probably not, honestly. Probably not.
No.
Because what we said B+ for him. I think he would probably be able to been an A if he was a 5-star.
That's fair. I mean, if we'll do this after the transfer portal concludes. So let's say we get like a starter, a really good corner, and you just grade the overall class because that is ranked individually as well.
Yeah.
Then we might be able to get to like if we get like the best corner in the transfer portal, then you might be looking at it as an A+.
Yeah. Also, the Gators could still get Onis Konabani from Tennessee, a guy who didn't.
I forgot about Onis. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't sign on Wednesday. He's pushing this out in February. So
he wanted his family to come back from. He wanted his family to come over from England, but flights got delayed, and so he's delaying his signing until February so that he can do it with his family. Which respect that. It also was like, hey, maybe we not. Now there's 2 months now where other teams can recruit him, so we'll see what happens there.
I mean, look, anytime you're recruiting a guy who's committed to somewhere else and he doesn't sign with that school on National Signing Day, that's a win. No matter what happens.
I think, though, he was going to flip to Florida. So it's like he might as well be committed to Florida right now, in my book. That's how I'm kind of looking at it.
I'd say I feel good about him for sure. I mean, him not signing on signing day was as good of a sign, almost as good of a sign as him just signing with Florida outright.
So let's give the recruiting class an overall grade. So I think I kind of want to look at it from multiple ways. It's the 11th ranked class, which, we want top 7, top 5 classes. We want elite classes, which this isn't an elite class. Mm-hmm. But when you compare it to the fact that 3-4 weeks ago, we were ranked in the 50s. I mean, Billy Napier, if he can figure out a way to win 9+ games next year, I think we have a decent chance to be looking at a top 5 class. I mean, but this class. We got some elite players. I think even the lower ranked guys like Amuiz, Tonakara, Stefan Shivers, maybe they're 3 stars. And I know they like Miles Johnson. Miles Johnson was committed to Bama. We flipped him from Bama. Bama did want him. Wait, did we flip him when they had Saban or was it Kalen DeBear? I can't remember. Kalen was the coach, I think. Miles Johnson.
Or
linebacker. I think Kalen was the coach. But from what I've heard, Bama did want him. Really high upside guy. I think from their recruiting rankings alone right now, I'll give it a B. But I wouldn't be surprised if we're looking back and we see Vernell Brown end up being a really good receiver. One of those 2 safeties end up being an all SEC level player. Ben Hanks ends up being a starting level corner. Ty Jackson's a starting linebacker. One of Wiggins or Woods is a all SEC edge. And like Nashawn's a solid receiver. Dice solid offensive lineman. When the running backs develop. And then like Jeremiah McLeod or Joseph Mbachio end up being a really good D lineman. So it's from the recruiting rankings, I'd probably give it a B. But I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the 4 years from now we're looking at it and it's like an A.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. Like, there's good players in the class, and it's a small class, and it was intentionally a small class. So it probably would be a top 10 class if it was closer to full size class.
2 players. You just add Onis Konabani and some other low 4-star that we could probably easily flip.
So it could still end up being a top 10.
Yeah, that's the difference in it being a top 10 class. I mean, I really don't think the difference in 10 and 11 would have changed my grading for it.
Yeah.
I think maybe the difference in 10 and 11 if it was an elite player, like a Dallas Wilson. If we had Dallas Wilson, I'd probably give it B+, A-. Because smaller class, but good elite players. But so what do you give? I give it a B.
I am going to say it's a B- for me.
B-, okay.
I think for me, looking at this class, it's like two things can be true at the same time. Like, first of all, this was a really nice salvage job by the staff on this class. It looked really dire. I mean, it looked like it was going to be a horrendously bad class,
worst
like outside of the top 45 class. And they recovered to have like a more than respectable class. So there's something to be said for that. It's still just not where just frankly, straight up, it's not what we hired Billy to be doing anymore.
No, it isn't.
And that's the problem for me. And I think it looked like there was a kind of a brief moment in time in the last week or so where it looked like we might get there. When there was smoke about Dallas Wilson and Jamie French at differing times, when there was smoke about Solomon Thomas, when there was smoke about even a little smoke about like Naeem Offord, you don't get any of those guys. You know, signing day ends up being pretty chalky. No real surprises in either direction.
You keep your guys though.
You keep your guys. That's what I mean. Chalky. Like no surprises, good or bad. And then again, there's something to be said for that. It's just like I don't know if they're the difference makers in this class, the immediate difference makers. And I know people are going to point and say, like, well, how are they going to recruit when, you know, everyone thought Billy was going to get fired until midway through the season? Like, they did the best they could given that. And like, yeah, that's true. But it's also the staff's fault that was the position.
Absolutely.
So that doesn't absolve them of the situation they're in. So that's kind of why I'm at B-. Like, I recognize the impressive close. I think getting the safeties was very, very nice work. I think that was that was the most encouraging thing about the momentum that they got at the end, but ultimately it wasn't quite the close that we thought it could be. I mean, I think it was a disappointing signing day no matter how you try to spin it, because it's just not what we thought it had the potential to be. So that's kind of why I'm sitting at B-.
Yeah, I can't really blame you there. I mean, we'll see. Maybe there's a surprise. I mean, I doubt it.
I mean, guys aren't tied anywhere. I think it's worth pointing that out. These aren't national letters of intent anymore. They're financial aid agreements. They can transfer at will. Still, they can leave. So the recruiting battles are not really over, though certainly you would rather have a guy signed than not.
Give Billy credit. I'm pretty sure I heard when he talked to Stubbs, when Stubbs said he's committing, can't remember if it's USC or Miami, he said that Billy told him, like, hey, it's not National Signing Day yet, so Billy's going to keep recruiting these guys, which we could see help us in the portal as well. So,
which is how these guys technically would be treated, by the way, if we got them as portal guys. They wouldn't help. Right? I mean, am I correct in saying that if we flipped anyone that signed on Wednesday, they would not count toward our recruiting ranking?
I don't know, because you also look at Jameer Grimesley and Jason Zandamela.
I don't think either of them counted towards our recruiting class ranking.
They were transferred. But, like, they're freshmen on the team. But that's not really – well, that's what you were talking about, not necessarily.
But they were guys who signed an NLI and got released from it.
Well, so they didn't get released from it. That's why they were transfers. Because DeAndre Robinson from Texas, he got released from his NLI and he counts towards the recruiting class.
Well, Grimsley got automatically released because Saban left, right? Does coaching change means anyone can enter the portal immediately?
Nope, they had to. They could enter the portal. They just weren't part of the recruiting class because Robinson. He signed his NLI, but he was still part of the recruiting class. Grimesley signed it, but had to transfer. Okay. Like all the players that went to Bama, like Julian saying, they had to technically transfer. But then you look at Robinson, he was able to be part of the recruiting class. Zandamela is a bit different because he actually spent like a month at USC, so that one makes more sense as to why he's listed as a transfer. But Grimesley, he didn't get to Bama. He just signed his NLI, and they wouldn't let him out of it.
Gotcha.
So, because any player can transfer. That's the thing. Even if you sign your NLI. Which honestly is kind of douchey from Bama. Because, like, Nick Saban retires, and you're just like, nope, you have to use your transfer now.
Although they're not even using a transfer. They're unlimited transfers now. So
yeah. That's true. So, like, Julian Sayans listed as a transfer for Ohio State.
Yeah.
But that'll do it there. Ooh, man. Hour 40. I was worried that we didn't have the game to talk about, that the show might be shorter, because I know our top 5, bottom 5 goes like 30, 40 minutes. But, man, we're an hour 48 in. We want to talk about the playoff a little bit. You know, we're college football fans too, not just Gator fans. What matchup do you want to talk about first? Or how do you want to go on it?
Talking about the playoff?
Yeah.
I mean, I think let's just start off talking about the thing that everyone's talking about. Do you agree with what they did with SMU?
Oh man, you know, I could have gone either way. I think there was both decisions were wrong and right.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say yes.
That they made the right decision?
Based on most deserving and like, I'll be real here. If SMU didn't get in, they kind of would have been screwed.
Yeah.
But, like, if Bama did get in, I'm not going to say Bama didn't deserve to be in. Or, well, the 12-team playoff bracket way, I wouldn't say Bama didn't deserve to be in. Because they have a win over the SEC champion. They have a win over a top 15 South Carolina team.
Yeah.
So, it's like, and they dominated LSU. I think Bama also, based on the 12-team format, deserved to be in. But I also think SMU was a bit more deserving, especially the way they lost that Clemson game. Oh, man. 56-yard field goal. That's brutal.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think Bama is better than SMU, but
I do too.
I think it would have been awful if they bumped SMU, an 11-1 SMU team, for losing an extra game. And like, I find all the arguments in favor of Alabama so uncompelling. It's like, well, now, okay, well, that ruins, like, say goodbye to tough strength of schedule. Like, you lost 3 games. You lost 3 games in conference play.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go at. They lost 2 bad games. If Bama had lost to Georgia and South Carolina, then maybe you have a different argument. Or like, it's not, say they keep the Georgia win, so they have that for the resume. But say that other losses to Missouri, who's still a top 25 team, then it's like, oh, well, okay, they didn't lose anyone bad. It's just the fact that they played a tough schedule. They lost to 6-6 Vandy and 6-6 Oklahoma. Like,
well, and Alabama, like I saw Greg Byrne be like, well, we're gonna have to look at scheduling tough non-conference games. Their non-conference games this year were South Florida, 5-7 Wisconsin, Mercer, and Western Kentucky. Fine, decent G5 team, Western Kentucky, whatever. It's like you didn't schedule a tough non-conference, and this happened to you. If you had scheduled a tough non-conference and won one of those games, you probably would have gotten more leeway sitting at 9-3 with a bad loss to Oklahoma.
They also played at Camp Randall. I mean, we saw Oregon almost lose.
This is true, by the way.
Randall.
Greg Byrne did get community noted. He got fact checked.
I saw that, yeah. Yeah, we screwed ourselves with the OU loss, and this is coming from an Alabama man. Here's the thing. I think a 9-3 Florida team would have gotten in over SMU. Assuming, let's say, say the 3 losses were A&M, Miami, and then Texas. Or, yeah, let's say Texas. Because then you're looking at Florida, top 10 win Ole Miss, top 10 win Georgia, and a LSU. I think Florida may have gotten in over SMU instead.
I mean, like, just to use something that's like not as much of a counterfactual, like, I think if South Carolina was 9-3, but with like just different losses other than Bama and Ole Miss, I think they would have gotten in. I think the whole thing with them is you just can't, there's no way they could justify putting them over 2 9-3 SEC teams that beat them.
It's different if they had like won the SEC championship, like South Carolina. Because like, if you remember 2020 Florida, they lost to Texas A&M, and then if they would have won out, Florida would have been in over A&M.
Yeah.
But because like then Florida would have the SEC championship and win over Alabama, who A&M did lose to. But like, if South Carolina had the SEC championship, then I think they could have they would have gotten in actually by auto bid. But still, from a resume standpoint, I think they also would have been in over South Carolina or Alabama and Ole Miss.
Yeah, I mean, I think like. I guess the main reason I wanted to talk about this was, I mean, because obviously the playoffs interesting in general, but like as far as it relates to Florida, like to kind of gauge your take on what Greg Byrne is saying. Like, should Florida be worried about the fact that they've got Miami on the schedule next year and Florida State on the schedule in perpetuity? Like, do you see that as a problem?
Well, I don't think either team's going to be that good next year.
I mean, fair enough, but like it's still like I think that's still a little bit different having games against teams that still recruit a relatively high level on average compared to just scheduling, just random Sunbelt teams or like 5-7 Big Ten teams. Like,
to be fair, Wisconsin was like projected to do better than.
Yeah, I mean that's true.
When they scheduled this game, everyone thought Luke Fickell was bringing Wisconsin back to the promised land.
Well, SMU scheduled a TCU team that played for a national title 2 years ago, and they played a BYU team that was very close to being in the playoffs themselves. I'm not arguing like with you there. I'm just another point in SMU's corner that I forgot to bring up earlier.
I mean, here's the thing: it's like Bama. They lost the 2 bad losses. That's the difference.
Yeah,
it's like. It's not that they lost to good teams, or they did lose one good team in Tennessee, but it's not that they lost to good teams. That's the problem. Like, they lost to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. That's the problem. Yeah. I don't think Florida should be too worried about it, especially at the point where FSU, they're going to be lucky to make a bowl game next year. Miami's replacing their entire offense, and they already have a horrible defense. I mean, USF could be decent. Alex Golish is a good coach. That could be a game that's kind of under the radar. Week 2 for us next year.
Yeah.
Doesn't the SEC schedule get released this week?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think on Wednesday.
SEC football schedule 2025. Can't type. Holy. Okay. Wednesday, 7 p.m.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, we know it's basically just the inverse of this season. Like we don't know the order, but we know the teams. Yeah.
Although we probably do know, we do play Long Island week 1 and then USF week 2, and then I think we're gonna play Tennessee week 3, and then Miami week 4.
It was Florida A&M that we swapped for Long Island, right?
We had Florida A&M scheduled for like the 28th, and we had no week 1 game scheduled. So we had to buy out that game so we could.
So Miami's week 2 next year, right?
Miami's week 4.
Week 4. Okay, that's weird. That is very weird.
Because like we just played in week 1. I don't know why we're moving it to week 4. I mean, especially
it's
because
just weird to have a toughish non-conference game like in October. That is kind of weird.
I think we're going to get because Tennessee also doesn't have a game scheduled for week 3. I think because that's the third Saturday in October they used to do. So I think we're going to end up getting. Oh yeah, September. I think we're
first Saturday. It's that's their Alabama rivalry. Yeah.
So I think we're gonna get stuck with Tennessee, who should be a physical. I mean, they do lose a lot. Like I'm gonna probably predict us based on if we do DC in the portal. I'm probably gonna predict us to beat Tennessee going into next season. But they should still be a decent team. While Miami, I assume Miami's gonna play 3 cupcakes, maybe a low level ACC team before they play us. I mean, that makes us more battle tested, but it also is like higher chance for injury for us. Do you want to actually talk about the playoffs?
Yeah, sure. I mean, we can get into some of the games.
What do you think? So let's start with Indiana Notre Dame Friday night in South Bend.
Yeah, in-state
battle. 7.5-point spread, I think, which really surprised me. I thought Notre Dame would at least be double digit.
Yeah, I think they will be when it comes to the final margin. I'll tell you that. Like, I actually think Notre Dame is like not getting enough attention as a contender here.
I agree.
Like, I think their offense is limited with Riley Leonard, but man, they are. Yeah, and like in a world full, or in a college football world full of teams that have pretty suspect offensive lines, all in all, Notre Dame does not. They have a very good one. So that's, I think, I understand they haven't really been tested and they have the Northern Illinois loss, but the way they've been playing, I don't know, man. Like, they have my attention. I think they could be much more of a factor in this thing. Like, I feel like they've been an afterthought throughout the whole thing. Like, people are forgetting they're even in the playoff. But
yeah, I think Notre Dame beats Indiana pretty easily.
Yeah.
And then I don't think Carson Beck's going to play for Georgia. So how much do you trust?
You think he's hurt, or are you saying you think?
Yeah, he's hurt.
Like, do you think he's like too hurt to play in that game?
Yeah. That's what I'm saying.
News on that today. Okay.
I don't know, man. You couldn't. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
The only thing is, it's weird to me. If he was hurt that bad, it's weird that they would put him in to hand the ball off.
That's also true. I mean, I guess they still don't trust Jaden Rashada, but
I mean,
but still, like, I don't know. He's gonna be good to go. Even if he is, he's not gonna be 100%.
Yeah.
That very good. If Notre Dame had Benjamin Morrison, I think they could win the national title.
Yeah.
Because where I get worried about Notre Dame, if they make it to the championship and they face Oregon, they just don't have enough corners to defend Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart and Tony Ferguson.
I mean, Oregon might just be far and away the best team in the country, like straight up, honestly.
Okay, I assume you have Notre Dame over Indiana too?
Yeah. Pretty
what about
easily.
Notre Dame, Georgia? If, let's say, Beck doesn't play.
Oh, man. If I pick Notre Dame here, I'm going to end up looking so stupid, but
I know.
I kind of want to.
Even
though, like, I know it's going to make me look dumb, but I still kind of want to do it.
I'm gonna say if Beck doesn't play, my pick is Notre Dame. If Beck does play and is like 90+%, I'll take Georgia. I don't think Beck plays, so my pick is going to be Notre Dame.
Yeah,
or Beck plays as a healthy level.
Notre Dame. Yeah.
Okay, so then on the same side of the bracket, you have the Boise State, who's the 3 seed. So Penn State, right?
Yeah, Penn State
That's
and
Penn State,
SMU.
SMU. I got
Yep.
Penn State. I mean, dude, I'm telling you, if Penn State's offense that showed up against Oregon is what shows up for the playoff.
What was that, man? Where did that come from?
I mean, Andy Kotelnicki is.
I
And,
guess.
I mean,
Future West Virginia coach, Andy Kotelnicki?
maybe. Don't sleep on Rich Rod.
True.
If that's the offense that Penn State brings the rest of the way, I don't think their defense is going to give up that many points to anybody else.
Yeah.
I can see Penn State winning a natty. I wouldn't have said that a week ago. You could have told me Penn State won 13-9 in like a turnover defensive game, and I would have felt the same about Penn State and said Oregon's still better. But now I could actually see Penn State end up winning a natty. Like I wouldn't be shocked at that result now.
I still. Oh, sorry. You got a pick there.
SMU. The thing about SMU, they just did not come prepared for Clemson. They just weren't ready for the big
in the first half. In the first half. But here's the thing: if Penn State gets up like that against them, they're not going to do what Clemson did. They're not going to give them a chance to come back and tie it with 17 seconds left. So I think Penn State wins it. I'm going to say Penn State wins by like 10 points. Yeah, I don't think I can't really say I think Penn State can win a national title because that would require James Franklin winning like more than one big game.
That's fair.
So I don't know if I can
one. He doesn't have to win a big game. The games he loses, he's the underdog in. He's not going to. I think he's either going to be favored, already favored over SMU.
Yeah.
They're going to be favored over Boise State.
Yeah.
They might be favored. If it's Notre Dame, I think they might be favored for Notre Dame.
Maybe.
That might be a pick. That would be like a pick.
I think that's where I would stop feeling good about them because I agree. I think they take care of business against SMU. I think they would. No disrespect, but I think they would beat the brakes off Boise. I think most teams in this field would beat the brakes off Boise, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think Boise would really beat any team in the field.
I mean, if you just sell out to stop Ashton Genty with SEC or Big Ten front sevens, he's not going to break off 220 on 30 carries. Like, that's just not going to happen.
No.
And again, maybe I'll make myself look stupid there too, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah, no, it's not. And then, so Notre Dame, Penn State, that if you would have told people if you would have said to Notre Dame that people would have them in the Final Four after their loss to Northern Illinois, if you would have told people that Penn State would be in the Final Four after their loss to Ohio State, I mean, people would have thought you crazy probably.
Yeah.
But I think that's a legit possibility to happen. Well,
it all broke down really nicely for Penn State. I mean, they are the biggest winner in terms of the path here.
Absolutely. Then you look at the other side of the bracket. You know who the biggest loser is? Oregon.
Yeah.
Because they're going to have to face the winner of Tennessee, Ohio State, where they're both good teams defensively. Mm-hmm. I mean, strong in the defensive fronts there. We saw Oregon only beat Ohio State. I mean, I say only, they beat Ohio State, so that's really all that matters. But it was only a 1-point game. It's not like they were significantly better to the point to where it's like, oh yeah, I'm easily picking Oregon to rematch. Mm-hmm. It's like Ohio State could easily win that game.
100%.
And the thing about Tennessee, where did we see Oregon struggle against Penn State? The rush defense.
I mean, yeah.
And Tennessee.
I mean, the secondary wasn't great either, I would say.
No. I mean, I think Dylan Sampson as a whole, his running game is better than Penn State. I mean, Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen are really good, but I think Dylan Sampson's a better back.
I think Tennessee's probably better up front, like offensive.
Yeah,
than Penn State
also
is.
True. So I think if they can get to the Oregon game, they could run for a lot of yards in Oregon. Tennessee, if they want to make a championship, it's Nico. He's going to have to end up stepping up to make the big plays.
And do you trust Nico to step up and make the big
plays
in Ohio Stadium in December?
Well, I don't think Nico has to make the – I'm not sure Nico ends up having to make the big plays to beat Ohio State. I think Will Howard is going to be the one who has to make the play to win it because I trust Tennessee's defense and Dylan Sampson more than I trust Ohio State's offense. I could see it to where it's like
against Ohio State's defense, though. Because they didn't they didn't give up anything to Michigan. Like their only touchdown was set up at the
Dylan
2 with an
Sampson is
interception, you know what I mean?
better alone than, because here's the thing, I could see it being like 13-10, Tennessee leads in the fourth quarter, just like how it was against Michigan. Like, I'd say Tennessee is a better defense than Michigan, and they have a better offense than Michigan.
Yeah, they do.
So, like,
I think
better than Michigan in both ways.
Yeah, I think the Michigan game was still more of an anomaly than anything else, because I think that's just weird psychological. I mean, my whole thing here is I think Ohio State's defensive front is good enough to keep Dylan, not like shut him down, but keep him in check and make Nico have to make plays through the air. And I frankly just don't think he can. In this environment, I don't think he'll be able to. I don't trust him. I don't really trust this Tennessee team, to be honest with you. Like, they've been pretty inconsistent. They've been a little too inconsistent for my liking.
That's fair.
I think outside of what happened against Michigan, which I don't have a great explanation for as we sit here more than a week later, Ohio State has looked like the much better team to me than Tennessee this year, and that's kind of where I'm leaning here with my pick.
All right, that's where we differ. That's like the first difference right there.
Yeah.
I got Tennessee in that game.
Okay.
Clemson, Texas. I don't trust Quinn Ewers. I did a show earlier on SU1 Sports, and we were talking about it. And they're like, who's the best QB? And they're ranking Quinn Ewers highly up there. I'm like, I don't trust Quinn Ewers at all. I mean, I think Texas might just be better to go off with Arch. And I'm not that high on Arch as other people are either. I mean, Quinn just doesn't have it. Like, his arm strength after he got that injury at what? Can't remember when he got the injury. Earlier in the year.
Yeah.
And
it was
doesn't have the deep ball. Yeah, it may have been. I think it was the week after. But yeah. His deep ball just isn't there. And like, he doesn't have the power on his short throws, and that's why they struggle in the red zone so much. They had 5 times more yards than Georgia did in that first half, and they couldn't score in the red zone. 2 field goals, 6 points in total. So it's like, I'm gonna take Texas, but it's also like, I could see Clemson pulling an upset.
Yeah, I don't see it here. I think I agree with what you just said about Ewers. I think that is a problem, and I think it will be a problem for them later in the tournament for sure. I don't think it happens in this game.
Who do you think is better? Who do you think is better, Clemson or A&M?
A&M.
You think A&M is better? Okay.
Yeah, I think so.
Because Quinn Ewers tried to give A&M that game, and A&M couldn't take advantage of it.
I think A&M's defense is a lot better than Clemson's is. I mean, Clemson got kind of torched in that second half by Kevin Jennings.
That's true. That is very true. But if Texas does the same thing that they did to A&M, where they gave A&M a real good chance, I think Clemson takes more of an advantage. I'm going to take Texas. I'm going to take Texas by like 4 points. I think Clemson ends up covering that spread. And I don't know, because I could also just see Texas blowing him out. Because I think Ewers, if he plays like it, maybe the best QB in the playoffs. But he hasn't played like it since that Michigan game.
I will say that they did move the ball yesterday against Georgia, like in the first half. I mean, you're right. They didn't score, and that's part of the problem.
Yep.
But I don't know. Like, the thing I can't get past with this game here is I still think Texas's defense is the best in the country. I think they're elite. And I look at the success Clemson had yesterday. It was just Cade Klubnik putting the team on his back, like with his arm, with his legs. Like, Bryant Wesco was torching SMU's defense. I don't think you'll be able to do that to Texas. I just don't straight up don't think you'll be able to. So I think even if Quinn Ewers has a share of struggles, like, I don't think they'll need him that much. I think Texas will be able to run the ball. I think they'll be able to run the ball in this game, honestly.
So getting into our next matchup, do you know who had the most yards on Texas in a game this season?
Assuming it's probably not Isaiah Bond because he hasn't produced that much.
No. Who had the most yards against Texas?
Oh, yards against
their
Texas.
Defense. Yeah.
Oh, man. Was it like someone on Mississippi State or something like that?
No. Like overall yards, the team yards against Texas.
Oh, sorry. I thought you were about a player. No. I don't know, honestly.
I'll say this team had over 200 rushing yards on Texas. It was Florida.
Really?
Florida.
Wait, Florida ran for 200 yards in that game? I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, because Ball went for 86 and Jacoby went for like 117.
Okay.
So Florida ran for over 200 yards on Texas. You know who they faced in the second matchup? Arizona State. Cameron Scadaboo, the best running back in the country. No. I mean,
I will say though, do you think that was just like an element? Like, yeah, I don't know. I feel like
Florida had
the game was never
3
close,
successful drives when the game was still in distance to where Florida scores. It's a close possible game. Most of the yards did come in the second half, but it was also they also still had like 80 yards, rushing yards in that first half against Texas, which is respectable. I mean, that's actually really good, 80 rushing yards. Because like you have 160 rushing yards, that's really good.
Yeah.
Against but you said maybe the best defense in the country in Texas.
Yeah.
So could you see that being a struggle, and maybe Arizona State shocks them?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's more of a possibility than I did before watching Arizona State on Saturday. I mean, they look really good.
Yeah, they are.
I think they're a lot better than Iowa State is.
Easily.
I'm not sure I think they're good enough to win a game like this or make a lot of noise in this tournament. I mean, Scadaboo, like, it's just one of those things where I kind of just believe this. I think not having Jordan Tyson is
that's
really
that's where
brutal.
I was going to go.
Yeah, I think if they had him, what was that?
I said I still was going to pick Texas because they don't have Jordan Tyson. Like I still probably would have picked Texas even if they did, but like that's like okay, I feel pretty confident because they still have the receiver that if Scadaboo, they just stop him for a good portion of the game. They just don't have the other guy to make the big plays.
And that's what I thought. Like, I thought going into Saturday's game, I was like, I think Arizona State will be fine here without Jordan Tyson because I don't think they'll need him because I kind of thought more or less they'd be able to do what they did with Cam Scadaboo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think once you get into the playoff, though, that's not going to be the case.
No.
I don't think they're varied enough. I don't think they have the guys on defense. Like, they're a good team. I think this would be an easier second round game for Texas than Clemson, to be honest with you.
You think, okay, that's fair. Yeah.
I think Clemson's more well-rounded than Arizona State is.
Clemson is more well-rounded than Arizona State. I think I agree there. I mean, I would say early on against Arizona State was kind of dicing them up, but then like Arizona State got all the momentum and then game was over.
Rocco Beck threw a couple bad interceptions.
Yeah. I mean, it was a one-score game with like 3 minutes left before halftime, and then Arizona State scored like last minute, and they got the ball to start and scored. And so it's I mean, I have Texas as well. So then going to you have Oregon versus Ohio State. I have Tennessee, Oregon. I have Oregon. I'm just gonna keep it short and simple.
I agree. I think Oregon. I mean, Oregon is probably my national title pick right now. Honestly,
that Oregon hasn't won a national championships ever.
I don't think they have. I mean,
no,
if they did, it was
A&M was 1939. But I was getting those two confused. But Oregon's never won a national championship. So then we both have Oregon versus Texas. If Quinn Ewers plays like the Quinn Ewers of last season, I think Texas can win this game, and I think Texas does. But if Quinn Ewers plays like how he's been this season, I have Oregon pretty easily.
Yeah, I think Texas at its best is the best team in the country. Like, I think if you get every team at their best, I think Texas is the best team in the country.
Well, what about Georgia? Because
when have we seen Georgia? What is Georgia at their best, though?
I think Georgia at their best is Carson Beck.
But I'm saying, what have we seen as Georgia's best?
Well, I don't know if it's been this season we've seen. I think it's a combination of, like Carson Beck of how he played mostly last season.
Yeah. And
then you have the offensive line healthy. Tate Rutledge has been hurt. Yeah. Their best offensive lineman. Truss is a good lineman. Fairchild's decent. And Monroe Freeling's young and decent. I think that's good. Their receivers. So at their best, I guess it depends how you define at their best. Do you just have everyone playing to their potential fully? Or, like, not potential, but do you have everyone playing? Because, like, Arian Smith, Dylan Bell, they're going to drop passes.
Yeah.
So, like, are you saying those guys just don't drop passes at Georgia's best? I don't think you do.
Yeah. Well, I guess what I'm saying is, what I'm kind of getting at is, like, I think this team severely misses Lad McConkey and Brock Bowers. I think this team, I mean, what I'm about to say is an extremely relative sentence. I get it. I think this is the worst defense Georgia's had under Kirby in 5 years.
Easily.
It's still good because it's a Georgia defense, but it's not up to the standard that they've kind of set, I think, over the last 4 or 5 years. So also, I think this Georgia team's just a good but not great team. I think it's just flawed in a way that Georgia
I think it's great with Beck. And you also look, they missed Smale London for a good portion of the season, their best linebacker. So it's like, I think he's also a huge thing. Like Florida, when we look back to the Florida-Georgia game, I mean, Florida had a good bit, like more success than they should have against Georgia based on what you had seen in years past. Like Aiden Warner being able to lead, 2 scoring drives before half and third quarter, fourth quarter, 5 minutes left. We wouldn't have seen that with former Georgia defenses. They would have completely shut that team out. Yeah. They wouldn't have scored those 10 points. Maybe they get like a lucky 3 points. But like, we wouldn't have seen that with former defenses, which is fair to you. But like, we also saw them shut out. No, not in the second half. They shut down Texas offense.
Yeah,
which
I mean, I think that game to me was just like they jumped out to such a big lead in that game that it just became like Texas couldn't ever establish the run. Which I mean, granted, they couldn't do that yesterday when they tried either. So maybe they just can't establish the run on Georgia. But
little update: the spread opened at 9.5 for Florida Tulane. It's already at 11.5. Like a 2-point jump at the beginning of it. I mean, Mensa, I'm actually surprised it didn't jump more with Mensa opting out. Yeah. I think it will jump a lot more.
I mean, I'm curious, like they have a really good running back, Mekhi Hughes. I'm curious if he jumps in the portal, if he plays in this game, like what the deal is there. Like,
I think this gets over 14. I think it gets at least 14.5.
You're saying if he were to jump in the portal or
just in general? I think the spread gets to the 14.5.
I can see that.
Excuse me. How did Pete Nakos just report UCF offensive lineman Caden Kittler is currently visiting Mississippi State? He's not supposed to.
You're allowed to do that. Unless did he entered the portal like before the season?
Maybe that's a good shout.
Because if you're still in the portal, like you don't have to commit by a certain day. As long as you're in the portal, you can do whatever you want.
Okay. That's probably what ended up happening.
Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Could be wrong.
Yeah, or he's just visiting on his own, and he's just waiting until.
Yeah, I mean, I guess nothing's stopping you from just driving to campus. I guess they can't. Like, it's not like that's against the law.
No, it's and the rules. I don't think they're worried about the law in there, but like the NCAA rules.
Yeah.
Well, you see, Oregon in basketball lost to UCLA.
Oof.
I think Florida's gonna end up being in the top 10 tomorrow with the new AP poll.
Yeah, because we're off till Saturday, right? We don't play this during the week. Yeah,
I think if Florida wins out, Florida beats Arizona State and North Carolina. I mean, I'm assuming we're going to be our other cupcake opponents. We'll be in the top 5 going into that Kentucky game. Could we see a top 5 matchup in the that's
that would be crazy. Yeah,
I think we might be able to see a top 5 matchup for that. If you saw Kentucky lost Kerr Krista, their starting point guard, for 3 to 6 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, Florida's already like 5 bouncing between 5 and 6 in the net, bouncing between like 7 and 8 in Ken Palm. Yep. So they're already kind of pushing there in terms of the metrics.
The SEC is insane this season.
Dude, it's so annoying that this Florida team could end up being like a 3 seed in the tournament and the 6 seed in the SEC tournament.
It's crazy. I do think like our hardest part of the SEC schedule is early on, which might be favorable and might not. I mean, Kentucky's going to be missing their starting point guard more than likely for this game. Yeah. Like the short timeline, 3 weeks is when we play them. So I'm going to assume it's usually longer than exactly that. So they're going to be missing him. I think we kind of dominate Kentucky.
Yeah.
That's like, they don't have the physicality, which we do have. And it's like, we still have the high flying pace that if we need to get to, we can.
Yeah.
But I don't know if we're going to even need to get to that.
I worry a little bit about our defense, but they did tighten up quite a bit in the second half
Yeah,
of that Virginia game. The first half of that Virginia game, I mean, we've just had a couple games where teams just shoot like 60% on us in a half, and I mean,
and then right after that, the Aztec Arena, I'm gonna be at the game, Florida, Tennessee. I mean, if both teams are still undefeated, that might be a 1-3 matchup. That may be a top 4 matchup.
Yeah.
Which has the Aztec Arena ever seen a top 5 matchup? Like,
I don't think Florida's definitely not since it's been called Exact Tech Arena.
Yeah. O'Connell Center.
Yeah.
Like, because I think I listed it out. If we beat Arizona State, then I think we're going to be 11th or 10th in the new AP poll tomorrow.
Yeah.
If we beat Arizona State, we probably end up rising to like 8, depending on like what else happens. It could be higher. And then if we beat North Carolina and then win the other cupcake games, I think we end up getting to top 5 before SEC schedule. And then the Kentucky game's on a Saturday. If we beat Kentucky, I don't see how there's going to be other teams that you still put more than 3 of them above us. I mean, Tennessee is one of the teams that would be above us, like if they went out.
Yeah.
So then you're looking at Tennessee maybe as the 1 or 2.
Yeah, and I mean, Auburn has a loss now to a good Duke team, but still.
Kansas just got blown out by Missouri.
Yeah, they
end up only losing by 9, but like
they were down big. No, you're right. They were down pretty big at one point in that game.
Yeah, so it's like, man, could Florida end up being if Florida wins out to that Tennessee game, Florida should be the number 1 team in the country.
Pretty good chance of that.
Like
I'm worried. I'm worried about the ASU game though. I think I think that's going to be a tough game.
I do too. I just think Jaden Quintanance, their 5-star freshman, really good player. We have good defending big men.
Mm-hmm.
If we hit 10 plus threes this game, it's like a guaranteed win for us. If Florida hits 10 plus threes in like almost any game this year, it's like a guaranteed win. Because we're so good everywhere else, but we're inconsistent at shooting threes. Because like even if we hit 5 threes against a top 5 team or top 25 team, Florida still can easily win that. Easily in the fact that it's a top 25 team, and like easily enough for Florida to win it.
Yeah.
But like if Florida's on and they hit 10 plus threes, oh man. Jackson, I'm really sorry, guys. Yeah, I mean, you screwed yourselves. They should have matched up Tulane up with Iowa State, and they should have put Miami versus Florida in Orlando.
I mean, we just were not getting the Citrus. There was no chance of us getting the Citrus Bowl. That was entirely
plus bowl buy-ins. That's bowl buy-ins thing. Although Tulane versus Iowa State would have been a decent match. I'm interested to see who opts out for Miami.
I mean, probably most of them.
Yeah.
I mean, I would assume pretty much almost all those guys are gonna. I mean, all the guys that are like, do they lose both Restrepo and Jacoby George, or or they're both gone? Okay.
They lose Ward. They lose Martinez. They lose George. They lose Restrepo. They probably lose Inez Cooper. They lose 2 offensive linemen, I think. And then their defense just sucks.
Yeah.
So it's, I mean, dude, I thought Ruben Bain was going to be an all-American player. And what happened to him? I mean, I know maybe he got hurt in the Florida game. Maybe that's what happened.
Yeah.
So I haven't really kept up with it, but still. He went high expectations. So, I don't know. If it's injury, I can't really blame him, but still. I don't know. Do you think North Carolina is still going to end up being ranked by the time we play them? I don't think so.
Did they end up losing? Last night or today that they were playing?
They beat Georgia Tech by 3.
Okay, because they were losing that game when I checked in on it. Yeah. I didn't see what ended up happening. So they're like 5-4 now, 6-4?
5-4. They got blown out by Bama though.
Yeah, they're barely ranked as we speak, right?
They're 20th, so it's like a blowout loss to Alabama, and then Georgia Tech is one of the 10 worst power conference teams.
Yeah.
I just don't see I don't see how they could be ranked unless they play LaSalle on Saturday before
that'll do it. That'll get them back in. That'll get them back in the rankings. It could.
They could do
a win over the mighty Explorers. I think they're the Explorers.
That sounds right. LaSalle, it makes sense for them to be the Explorers.
Yeah.
But Yeah, man. I mean, I'm hoping the Florida team can just keep playing really good basketball. It's going to be a long off season for football. It always is.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it's an exciting one though.
Yeah.
I mean, get some good.
I mean, we'll know.
transfers.
That's I think the one thing that's good is I think we'll have a pretty clear picture of what kind of team he's going to have by January. You know what I mean? Like I think we'll know, by how aggressive they are in the portal and stuff.
I hope Iowa State kicks Miami's butts. Here's the thing: if they do, I kind of want to see like Emory Williams like look good, so that he is the starting QB going into next year. So I don't think Emory Williams is the guy, but like I hope
they're
they
definitely going to portal someone, even if Emory Williams looks good.
Yeah, but like they got to portal a whole offense and whole defense.
Yeah,
I don't know.
They do.
Maybe that's why they only
this
had
was definitely an all in on 1 year investment that didn't work out for them. Like there's no doubt. It was a good year, but yeah, it did. Yes, it did. It did work.
Ward made $2 billion. I heard he made $2 billion, probably more, because like I can guarantee you, with how good he played, he probably got other deals that he wasn't promised.
Yeah,
and then he's going to end up being a top 10 draft pick, probably.
Yeah, first round draft pick. I mean, I'm not going to pretend I know what's going to happen with the quarterbacks in this class, but he'll be one of the first. Yeah, for sure.
NFL draft projections. Let me look at mock drafts, whatever.
I just wonder if this is going to be a year like 2 or 3 years ago where there just like wasn't any like one quarterback draft in the first 3 rounds.
I just saw the first mock draft I look at has him going first overall to the Jets. So, and then the second one has him third to the Giants. So he's going to be a top 10 pick.
This isn't even a shot at Cam Ward, but that's a pretty big indictment of the quarterback class, I think.
Yeah. And like Shedeur is going to be the second QB taken more than likely. Yeah, they haven't going. Yeah, both.
I think I'd take Shedeur over Cam Ward, honestly. I feel like what Cam Ward does, I would trust less to work at the next level.
That's fair. Let's see what George got to say. I want to see how long the streak can last that DJ Lagley wins every game he starts and plays the whole game. Well, should beat Tulane. And then we have 2 cupcakes in Long Island and USF. I won't call USF a cupcake. I mean they will.
It should be, man. If that's even a tough game, we got problems.
And then the next game, I think we're gonna end up facing Tennessee, which I already said I'm probably gonna have us pick the win over that one.
Yeah.
If we do in the portal, what I assume we do, and then the next game would be Miami, which we've already talked about it. They have to rebuild their entire team. Like, if Florida is as good as we want to be next year, we have to beat Miami.
Yeah.
So, like, what? That's 4 games. He's at 3 or 4 now? 4? Yeah, 4. Kentucky, Ole Miss, LSU, FSU. So, 5 plus another 4. That gets him to 9. And then we'll see what the rest of the SEC schedule looks like. So, if things go how we want it to go, and, like, if Billy wants to keep his job, it needs to get to 9. At the minimum.
Yeah.
I predict Cam Ward will never start 1 game in the NFL. I wouldn't predict that.
I would not either.
Oh, wait. Florida is the only team in the state of Florida that knows who their quarterback will be next year.
Yeah, I think that's true. Actually, no, USF has Bryson Barnes, but assuming you're talking about not Bryson Barnes. Bynum Brown. God. Yeah, sorry. Brain just completely broke there.
Oops.
Bryson Barnes is the pig farmer from Utah, not Byron Brown.
Oh,
electric
no, we lost
dual threat quarterback from USF.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Kyle Trask is still sitting on the bench in Tampa, and he's 1,000 times better than Jared Cam. Dude, Baker Mayfield is just made of steel.
2-star recruit.
Well, so was Cam.
I guess you're right. But
or Cam was unranked. He went to Incarnate Word.
Yeah.
But bro, Baker Mayfield has to be made of steel. Anytime he gets hurt, it's like, oh, finally Trask needed his chance. Trask comes in for 1 play, hands it off, and Baker's back.
Yeah.
And it's 3 years it's been going on, and Trask has played like a total of 3 plays.
Yeah, obviously, like Trask was a great quarterback for us. I never really thought he had any NFL potential.
I just want to see him get a chance,
Yeah, it'd be cool. I just don't think he has the skill set, the arm strength, whatever, what have you.
He basically
Didn't
is
see
like
a ton of
Tom
NFL
Brady.
throws from him. Yeah, there you go.
He's Tom Brady, Tom Brady, not
Exactly.
the greatest arm strength,
Exactly 1-to-1 comparison.
Okay. I mean, we've been on here for 2.5 hours now. Do you have anything else to say? I mean,
yeah, not really. I would think we've covered everything pretty thoroughly. I would just say it's a very important few weeks for the future of Florida Gators football. As we enter the portal, signing day wasn't what we hoped it might be, but it also wasn't the worst case scenario either. Nope. Overall pretty chalky, but things worked out. And now, I mean, you lose a lot of pieces and you got to go into this portal and make this team better if you want to compete for a playoff spot next year, which is, I think, where we all feel like this team can be and needs to be if Billy's going to stick around in the long haul.
Maybe we get some early transfer portal news, a big time. I mean, it'll be cool if we can get an early transfer portal and we'll see y'all. But we might change time Sunday for our next show. That where we will be previewing the Tulane game. So we will update you guys on the time of that. Twitter, you can check out the Voice of College Football Twitter. It'll guaranteed to be updated on there. We'll probably also post on the community at updated time. So we will see you probably next Sunday at an earlier time. So make sure you guys have a great rest of your night and great week. And as always, go Gators.